Chapter 1551. The enemy will arrive in 30 seconds. However, this battle with an unexpected result did indeed gain them some very precious time. They had searched many places in the palace that could possibly hide a person, but they still couldn't find Connie and Ferdinand. They also couldn't find any clues about the black fog, either. About 5 minutes later, Camilla warned them that the 10th tier powerhouses had already returned to the palace, and asked them to be careful. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Right then, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded in the palace, and many orc guards rushed in immediately. The prison was hijacked, and all the guards were killed. The treasure vault was robbed. More than half of the treasures were taken. Shocking news soon spread in the palace, and caused a lot of commotion. No one had expected anyone would attack the Fog tribe on the night before the chief's conferring ceremony. They even snuck into the palace to destroy and steal. Bastard! They are disrespecting our Fog tribe. Lock down the palace. I want to flush these fellows out. Kurt led his soldiers out in a fury after he heard the report. He began to search the palace. Attention, all units! Attention, all units! Immediately retreat to the palace maid's dormitory as planned. Eradicate all troubles along your way as fast as possible. Mag grabbed Amy's hand with a grave expression. He opened the door slightly, and he could see the orc guards scurrying around like headless chickens through a small gap. Father, there are many people out there. How are we going to make our way out? Amy asked Mag worriedly. If there is no choice, we've got to fight our way out then, Mag replied with furrowed brows. They had to return to the palace maid's dormitory immediately. They wouldn't be able to retreat if the dormitory was discovered. I can hide our tracks with bubbles, Gina softly said right then. Mag and Amy looked at Gina simultaneously. Gina puffed her cheeks up slightly before blowing hard. A colorful bubble swiftly became bigger, and engulfed the three of them. Will this do? Mag poked at the bubble surrounding him doubtfully. It felt similar to a balloon. It should. Gina nodded. Then, let's set off. If there's an emergency, you two have to follow me closely. We need to return with our fastest speed. Mag didn't hesitate. He opened the door while no one was out there, and led Amy and Gina out. Two orcs came toward them as soon as they left the room. Mag was already pressing on his cleaver. However, those two orcs only looked at that slowly closing door perplexedly. They went over to push it open to have a look, and then walked right past them. They didn't even give them a second look. It really has the invisibility effect. Mag couldn't help being amazed. The little bubbles that Gina blew out actually had an invisibility effect. Let's quickly go. Mag was glad for it as he swiftly led Amy and Gina toward the palace maid's dormitory. Right then, an orc ran past Mag and the ladies as he loudly shouted, "Intruders were discovered in the cellar. Quickly assemble!" The orcs who were scurrying around in the hallway all ran in the same direction after they heard him. Seems like Elizabeth and the rest were discovered. Mag frowned. A large number of orcs were beginning to assemble, and many of them 7th tier and 8th tier. They were a big threat to Elizabeth and the ladies. Of course, the more terrifying enemies were those two 10th tier orcs who had already returned to the palace. Am I allowed to kill? Elizabeth's cold voice came through the headset. You do not have to be merciful to the enemies who want to kill you, Mag replied in a low voice. Boom! A loud bang sounded somewhere in the western area, and the entire palace shook along with it. The orcs who were rushing forward halted obviously. Mag brought Amy and Gina through the crowd. He simply kicked those orcs who blocked his way. Because of their invisibility, they managed to return to the palace maid's dormitory safely even though they had caused some commotion. 4 orcs were already trying to break down the door and enter the dormitory. Mag quickly followed them into the dormitory. Before they could make a sound after discovering the teleportation portal, he already knocked them all out with a brick. We've already arrived at the teleportation portal. How is your situation? Mag asked after he dragged the 4 orcs into the dormitory and closed the door slowly. We are blocked. There are so many people. The walkway is completely blocked, Yabimiya's nervous voice came through, and messy fighting sounds could be heard vaguely. Camilla's voice followed after that. The enemy's 10th tier powerhouse will arrive in 30 seconds. Mag gave Gina an order. Gina, you and Amy will stay here. Guard the door, and don't let anyone through. I'll go and bring them back. Father, I'll go with you. I can protect you, Amy looked at Mag worriedly. Little Amy, this is our only way out of here. If the teleportation portal is damaged, none of us will be able to leave. Are you confident to guard it together with big sister Gina? Mag said to Amy with a grave expression. I will guard it together with big sister Gina. Amy nodded her little head seriously. Very good. Mag patted Amy's head with a smile before he asked Gina, Gina, how long can this bubble last? Gina blew another bubble for Mag before she answered, it can last for 3 minutes. That's enough. Mag nodded. He tilted his ears to listen for sounds out there. He cracked open the door and dashed out of the dormitory. He followed the crowd to the location where Elizabeth and the ladies were trapped. Do you need backup? Irina's voice sounded. Not at this moment, Mag replied on the private channel, and drew out his Tiandu sword slowly, but he put it back after thinking for a moment. He took out the fathead fish instead. Sounds of fierce fighting could be heard, and all the guards and soldiers in the palace were running in the same direction. Mag moved along with the crowd as he rushed to the combat zone. The fighting in the long corridor was unusually fierce. Dozens of orc guards were already frozen into ice sculptures. There were also dozens of orcs who were banging up and down against the ceiling and floor uncontrollably. The other party only had 3 people in black, and they could roughly gauge that they were female based on their figures. However, their ruthlessness and powerful abilities had shocked them. They couldn't do anything to them within a short period even when they had the absolute advantage in number. Lord Kurt has arrived. Right then, an agitated voice sounded, and all the orcs parted to welcome the arrival of Kurt. Damned fellows! Does everyone think that our Fok tribe is a soft target? Kurt stared at the 3 people in black in the corridor with a ruthless gaze, and dashed toward them with his sword. Chapter 1552 That person is boss. No, I won't. Elizabeth's reply was sure and resolute. All right. Babla backed off as she pulled Mia along. With a wave from her, those orcs behind them seemed to be sent away with a giant hand, and a path was created for them. Sister, no. Mia turned to look at Elizabeth with panic and fear in her eyes. She couldn't imagine what would happen after she left Elizabeth here. Those scary orcs would tear her apart. No one can be spared. All of you have to die. A cruel smile appeared on Kit's face. He had suffered a huge setback due to Rex tonight. Encountering such weak opponents was rare, he had even decided how to torture them to death after he caught them. All the orcs had already parted. Lord Kurt was one of the Fok tribe's strongest powerhouses. With him around, all intruders had no way to escape. Ice Seal Domain. Elizabeth used her most powerful technique with a grave expression. Frost spread out from all sides along the corridor, and everything within it was sealed with ice. Ice magic caster? Interesting. Kurt slashed his sword across, and the cold air that moved toward him seemed to be slashed open by a sword. It couldn't stop him at all. All the orcs lit up their eyes. The ice magic that set them back was negligible in front of Lord Kurt. A smug smile appeared on Kit's face. He loved to be the center of attention. Slaughtering his opponents was indeed very exciting. Elizabeth narrowed her eyes. The great power of a 10th tier had exceeded her expectations. This orc was so much stronger than Fox. The ice seal domain couldn't even slow him down. A lot of solutions flashed across her mind. She had obviously no winning chance if she chose to attack him head-on. She would have to reveal her giant dragon identity so the other party wouldn't kill her, and she could wait for Mag to rescue her. However, she wouldn't want to depend on the Frost Dragon's reputation if she could help it. This wasn't in her character. Then, let's fight my way out first. Elizabeth stared at Kurt as a long ice blue spear gradually consolidated in her hands. The crystal clear spear gave out a coldness. Instead of retreating, she dashed toward Kurt, stepping on the ice. You're seeking death. Kurt smirked and pursed his lips as he looked at Elizabeth's actions. How dared an 8th tier fellow launch an attack at him? She really didn't know what was good for her. He simply swung his sword as he began to think about how to toy with this woman who had quite a good figure. However, just as Kurt went past a T-junction, a gale suddenly blew in the side corridor. A cold gleam flashed and crashed into him. Who is that? Kurt got a shock, and he swung his sword toward his side instinctively. Ding! The crisp sound of clashing metal could be heard in the long corridor. Kurt's sword was actually cut in two in the clash. Everyone stared at that broken blade that flew through the air and got stuck in the ceiling with wide eyes. Meanwhile, Kurt slammed hard into the wall. He had a 10 cm wide cut on his lower abdomen, and blood stained his clothes instantly. He stared at the empty long corridor with shock. Lord Kurt! All the orcs rushed forward and protected Kurt in the center as they stared at their surroundings in fear. They, too, only saw a cold gleam. They didn't see who attacked Kurt, either. Elizabeth also had shock on her face. Although she also didn't see who attacked Kurt, she could sense that person's presence. He had an incredibly terrifying speed and an awe-inspiring burst of energy. Elizabeth, retreat. Go straight down the third corridor at the back. Right at that moment, Mag's orders sounded in her ears. That person is boss? Elizabeth raised her eyebrows slightly. However, there wasn't much time for her to ponder. She halted her advance, turned around, and dashed toward the back. Next, she tossed the ice-cold blue spear forward hard in an attempt to skewer those orcs who tried to block her. Babla, bring Mia into the corridor in front of you. Go straight through it, and I will be waiting for you all at the juncture. Mag's voice appeared again. Babla was taken aback, but she still obeyed his instruction, and brought Mia into the corridor in front of them. The attack on Kurt caused fear and panic among all the orcs, and nobody could bother about Elizabeth and the ladies at that moment. Lord Kurt was a powerful 10th tier orc. However, his sword was actually severed, and he was injured. The other party had to be a formidable opponent. The most terrifying thing was that the other party could actually conceal himself. They only saw a cold gleam the whole time. They couldn't see who the other party was. Kurt leaned against the wall, still in a shock, but he still loudly ordered, "Damned fellow! Find them! I want to kill them!" All the orcs could only force themselves to pursue Elizabeth, the ladies, and that invisible killer. Mag took out a piece of cloth as he stood at the juncture. He wiped the blood on the cleaver away carefully before he kept it. He then kicked the orc whose leg was revealed back into the room. His peak 9th tier power gave him a rather good explosive power. With Gina's invisible bubble, he found the other party's moment of weakness, and gave him a dangerous strike. However, the other party was a 10th tier orc who was well versed in close combat, after all. His sense of danger and basic instincts were all excellent. Therefore, it was a waste that he could only sever his sword and deal him an inconsequential strike. If Mag had used the Tiandu sword, that strike would have pierced through Kurt. However, it would have been very hard for him to hide his tracks then. Mag couldn't help muttering, that last Gina is really a natural assassin assistant. The invisibility bubble was simply too practical. It was a waste that it could only last for 3 minutes. Footsteps appeared in both the corridors very soon, and Elizabeth, Babla, and Yabimiya appeared in his sight. And right behind them were even more intense sounds of footsteps. Mia was delighted to see Elizabeth come from another corridor before she nervously said, "Boss, there are many people after us." You'd better run quickly. Let's go. Little Amy and Gina are already waiting for us. Mag smiled at the three of them. Elizabeth gave Mag a meaningful look before waving her hand. A long wall of ice appeared behind her and sealed the corridor shut completely. Chapter 1553. Are they thinking of regaining control of this world again? Let's go. Let's leave here first, Mag said to everyone after kicking that knocked out orc aside. How about big sister Connie? We're not waiting for her. Amy asked Mag after checking her surroundings. Yes. Would it be very dangerous to leave Connie alone here? Mia was also looking at Mia worriedly. Everyone turned to Mag in unison. There are many orcs closing in now, Elizabeth said softly as she waved the door closed, and added a few layers of ice wall at the same time. Connie's walkie-talkie is no longer in use, and we cannot find her. We have to leave here immediately now that we are exposed, otherwise we will be in grave danger. Mag shook his head at everyone. Connie is very good at hiding and stealth, and she grew up here, so it's not difficult for her to evade the search party. Even if she was caught, given her identity, she would not be executed immediately. She would most likely be executed together with her brother at tomorrow's conferring ceremony, and we would still have a chance to save her. Bam! Bam! The sounds of breaking down the door had already appeared. Let's go. Our plan will fail if we get caught. Mag walked into the teleportation portal first. After hesitating for a moment, everyone followed Mag, and entered the teleportation portal. Bablat, activate the teleportation portal, said Mag. Bablat touched the bangle on her wrist. A silver starlight lit up, and landed on the teleportation portal underneath their feet. Dazzling light shone brightly instantly. After 3 seconds, the light disappeared, and all of them in the teleportation portal disappeared along with it too. Bam! The dormitory's door and ice walls were smashed to smithereens by a great impact. All the orcs rushed in, but they only saw the knocked-out palace maids. There were no intruders in sight. Daryl and Kurt, who was grasping his waist, walked through the door. Daryl stood in the center of the dormitory, and crouched down to swipe his finger across some white residue on the floor. After smelling it, he got up with a sinister look. Those fellows had set up a teleportation portal here. Damn it! They actually have a formation master among them. Kurt smashed his fist into the wall angrily. His agitated movement pulled the wound on his waist, and made him snarl in pain. First, it was the hairless monk, followed by the mysterious powerhouse in the west of the city. Then, a bunch of people snuck into the palace. There could even be a 10th-tier powerhouse among them. Seems like many people are against our Fok tribe, Daryl said with furrowed brows. Right then, an orc jogged over, and reported, "My lords, the chief is awake. Let's go. Let the chief decide on this matter." Daryl's eyes lit up, and he strode off immediately. Things are easier to settle now that the chief is awake. Kurt swiftly caught up with him. Why is the little one not out yet? Is she in some trouble? Rex stood on the roof of a stone palace as he worriedly gazed at the palace. After hesitating for a moment, he halted, and muttered, "If my disciple couldn't even get out of a place like that, she would have failed badly. Attention, all units, attention, all units. Apart from losing contact with Connie, everyone has evacuated safely. Tonight's operation has ended, and we will return to our individual courtyards according to our plans." Mag spoke into the walkie-talkie as he looked toward the palace on the top of a cliff. He couldn't help feeling worried. He didn't know where that last Connie was, or whether she was in danger. Elizabeth and the ladies were also silent. It felt bad to leave their companion behind. "Let's go back first." Mag held Amy's hand, and walked down the cliff. Elizabeth looked at Mag's retreating back with doubt and wonder. Was he the mysterious person who suddenly dashed out in the corridor and stabbed that orc? That speed and explosive force must be already very close to 10th tier, right? Everyone easily returned to their courtyard amidst the darkness and chaos. Irina had also returned to the courtyard with a grave expression, and told everyone, "I went to the palace on my way back, and I didn't find Connie, either. Her presence doesn't seem to be in the palace now. Seems like she has already left the palace on her own." "That's good news," Mag said with brightened eyes. Everyone visibly relaxed after they heard that. If Big Sister Connie has already left the palace, why is she not contacting us? Why doesn't she come back here? Amy asked perplexedly. "Perhaps she has found something in the palace," Mag murmured. It was indeed weird for Connie to suddenly lose contact with them. Given her hyper character, she should be the most active one in the walkie-talkie channel. She will definitely appear tomorrow. Ferdinand will be executed at the conferring ceremony. She's not a person who easily gives up. Mag smiled and concluded today's operations and conversations. He asked everyone to return to their rooms and rest. After everyone left, Irina stayed back, and asked Mag, "Do we need to look for her again?" "There's no need to. We won't be able to find her if she wants to hide from us." Mag shook his head. Connie was someone who could enter and leave Basti prison at will, so she was naturally invincible at hide and seek. However, somebody in the Fog tribe has made a deal with the devil. The Black Fog may be present. "Did you find any suspicious areas when you went into the palace earlier?" Mag asked in a lowered voice. "It's here too." Irina raised her eyebrow slightly. After pondering for a moment, she said, "I did feel a little uncomfortable when I entered the palace. I didn't pay much attention to it then, but now that I think back about it, that could have been my basic reaction to the evil presence. However, that feeling was very faint. I didn't even think about that because of it. Seems like the source is indeed within the palace." Mag nodded thoughtfully. At least, they could narrow down the target now, and the possibility that it was Gary had greatly increased. The Wind Forest, the Boundless Sea Realm, and now the Twilight Forest. What do those evil gods want? Are they thinking of regaining control of this world again? Mag shook his head with a grave expression, and said, "We are not certain about their motives yet. However, evil breeds wherever the Black Fog appears. If this situation spreads all over the continent, then civilization and order will be completely destroyed, and this world will be destroyed too." Mag could still remember that small island shrouded in the Black Fog in the Boundless Sea Realm. Allowing the Black Fog to develop would have a disastrous impact on this world. No one would be able to escape. They're really a bunch of nauseating fellows. Irina frowned. After a moment of silence, she told Mag, "I'm afraid we are not able to eradicate all the Black Fog that could appear in this world with just the two of us alone. This is a matter that every species has to face. The two of us aren't enough." Mag nodded slightly. "Hence, I decided to report this matter to all the people in charge of the species during the peace negotiations, and let them know about the existence of Black Fog. We will try our best to combine our efforts to fight against evil. This is impractical. How do we know if we don't give it a try?" Meanwhile, the Orc guards were striking everywhere, trying to maintain order again. The fighting in the canyon only died down gradually in the second half of the night. However, the majority of those Orcs who were imprisoned in all the prisons had already escaped. The damaged city walls resembled disturbing scars. The people couldn't believe such affairs actually happened in the Fog tribe. An Orc soldier gulped as he stared at the city wall that looked like it was crushed by a giant beast, and asked, "Captain, will tomorrow's conferring ceremony take place as planned?" "Maybe." That middle-aged captain, too, gulped with uncertainty in his reply. He had never seen anything like today in his life. Even the new chief hadn't created such a huge scene during his rebellion then. An order was sent out from the palace and passed on to every Orc in the Fog tribe soon. The ordinary Orcs were asked to stay at home, while all the Orc warriors and guards were told to clean up and repair the damaged buildings overnight. Mag had an uneasy sleep. He woke up a few times to check if Connie had returned or replied to his messages. However, there was still no sight of her. She had simply vanished. Early next morning, Mag was awakened by knocking on the door in the yard. Mag got up and changed before he opened the yard's door, and Haman was standing there. "Mr. Mag, I am really sorry to wake you up so early," Haman said apologetically. "It's fine. What's the matter?" Mag asked, completely unfazed. "It's like this. The tribe will be holding the chief's conferring ceremony tonight, and we need to decorate the entire tribe. Orders have been issued that no one is allowed to leave their homes this morning, so I specially came here to notify you all about that to prevent unnecessary troubles," said Haman smilingly. "Oh, I see. We will obey that." Mag nodded. He had roughly guessed that the palace needed to urgently repair last night's damages to prevent losing their pride in front of all the other tribes. Haman continued, "Apart from that, since Mr. Mag is in charge of the main banquet's dishes, the main kitchen needs to discuss with you the ingredients, kitchenware and manpower they need to prepare for you. The authorities have given you the highest permission, so we will try to get you whatever you need." Regarding the ingredients, Mag was about to reject Haman when he suddenly remembered something. He paused, and hesitatingly said, "I indeed do need some help from you, but this request might be a little overboard and bloody. However, this dish is the banquet's main dish, please say it. Although our main kitchen doesn't look like much, it has everything it needs. Even if you need a special ingredient, I will be able to get it for you before tonight's banquet," Haman said, slapping on his chest. "I need the lungs from a pair of loving husband and wife," Mag replied. Haman was obviously taken back. He only said with hesitation after a while, "Are you talking about the lungs from a pair of live husband and wife? Orcs?" "Yes. And I have to cut out the lungs personally to make sure that they're the freshest." Mag nodded seriously. Haman suddenly remembered something, and exclaimed, "Are you going to make the husband and wife lung slice? I didn't expect you to know that." Mag was surprised. "I have seen the report about your and Master Harris's duel. You defeated Master Harris with the husband and wife lung slice eventually, and ended his undefeated record." Haman nodded with excitement in his eyes. "I was just lucky." Mag shook his head humbly. "So, this dish husband and wife lung slice is really made with the lungs of a pair of husband and wife?" Haman pondered as he looked at Mag hesitatingly. How did he dare to kill a couple at Chaos City, a place that was so orderly? He would be labeled as a devil chef even if he really created an extraordinary delicacy using such a cruel method to extract the ingredients, right? Mag seemed to have guessed what Haman was thinking, so he smiled. "I used the lungs from a bull and a cow in Chaos City to create the dish. However, if I could use the lung slices from a pair of real husband and wife, especially a pair of loving husband and wife, then this dish could be considered perfect. Although killing a person for a dish is naturally unreasonable, I heard your tribe is going to execute many criminals today, so I wonder if there are a pair of loving husband and wife among them, and if you can provide them for me." "Oh, I see." Haman understood. After pondering seriously for a moment, he remembered two of them had matched Mag's requirement. They would be executed at the conferring ceremony today, so if he could get them to the main kitchen, he would be able to provide a set of satisfactory ingredients for Mr. Mag. He replied, "There is a pair of them, but I can't make the decision. I have to ask my superior. Then I will have to bother you. I am confident that today's highlight, husband and wife lung slice, would be stunning if we could find a pair of truly loving husband and wife." There was a hint of craze in Mag's gaze and a hint of excitement on his face. "Geniuses are indeed all crazy," Haman mumbled in his heart. After confirming the 10 dishes for the main table with Mag, he quickly left. "Let's hope we can save that loving pair of husband and wife first." Mag shook his head smilingly as he looked at Haman's retreating back, and closed the courtyard's door. Mia had also gotten out of bed to come to the yard, and worriedly asked Mag, "Boss, has Connie returned? Did she contact you?" "No. However, if there are no accidents, she will definitely appear at tonight's banquet." Mag nodded. Still, he wasn't too worried, as Connie had a powerful master protecting her after all. She wouldn't be harmed easily. "I need to go out for a while, and I will be back by the evening," Irina said to Mag as she came out of her room before a champagne golden beam lit up under her feet, and she disappeared immediately. "If there's nothing else, I am going back to catch up on my sleep." Camilla walked one round in the courtyard before she yawned, returned to her room, and closed the door. "I am going over to the kitchen to have a look and check for information too. If you all want to eat something, then follow me." Mag pushed open the yard's door and walked out. "Father, wait for me." Amy stumbled over with Ugly Duckling, and threw herself into Mag's arms. Chapter 1555 System, What's My Calling? Gary and the former chief, Isaiah, were half-brothers. Gary could be considered as a bastard, but because he had the same exceptional talents, he was brought into the palace. Meanwhile, Connie and Ferdinand were most likely half-siblings too. Connie was the queen's child, but as for Ferdinand, there were still arguments about if he was in fact the queen's biological child. Apparently, the queen couldn't get pregnant after marrying the chief for many years. One day, the chief consummated with a palace maid after he was drunk, and a child was conceived. The queen killed the mother after the child was born, took the child as hers, and told everyone that he was her son, young Master Ferdinand. 2 years later, Princess Connie was born. Of course, this matter was never verified, and could be most probably just a rumor. There also weren't any related reports in the Grey Temple's intel. Anyway, this romantic history of the palace was simply a piece of lousy palace soap opera. These royal chefs really dared to talk about anything. However, Mag had verified from them that Connie and Ferdinand did indeed have a great relationship. They grew up together, and Ferdinand took great care of Connie. As for Gary, these chefs were obviously very wary. They basically evaded all the questions about him. Even if they did talk about him, it was all praises. Mag bumped into Hannah in a corner just as he was about to return to the small courtyard. Mag raised his eyebrows slightly, and then quickly pulled Hannah into a corner to evade 2 servants who had just passed by. Hannah's face was pressed against Mag's chest. She blushed immediately when she felt that warm chest and strong heartbeat. Mag only took a step back after he heard the footsteps went far away. When he saw Hannah's flushed face, he couldn't help saying with surprise, "What are you doing here?" I came to deliver the wines and spirits," Hannah replied innocently. "Oh, I see," Mag smiled embarrassedly. He thought Hannah had snuck in to look for him. Hannah whispered, "I've already added in the drugs, and I prompted them that this batch of alcohol is more potent, so it wouldn't attract much attention even if the tester got drunk." "Great." Mag nodded in response. "I treated a mister with some alcohol on my way here, and I heard him say something terrible happened last night. Powerful enemies attacked the Falk tribe. Was it the organization?" There was a glow in Hannah's gaze. "No, it wasn't." "Oh," Hannah's emotions obviously became more depressed. Mag curled his lips a little. He felt a little like laughing. This maiden was really a good comrade that was loyal and expectant to the organization. In this case, when will you bring the girl away with you then? Although she is rather well behaved, she can really drink. She finished a big vat of my rum last night in one go, and she's still knocked out in my house now," Hannah said to Mag with difficulty. That happened. Mag was rather shocked to hear that. He knew very clearly that the rum in Hannah's house was of a very high concentration. Even adult orcs couldn't drink too much of it, and yet that little one had drunk an entire vat. Her resistance to alcohol was astonishing. Mag murmured, "Please take care of her for another 2 days. I will decide where she will go after this event blows over. Perhaps her parents are still alive." She said she no longer has any parents, Hannah replied right away. Then, you'll have to wait for my arrangements. All right. Hannah nodded slightly. She squeezed into Mag's arms instinctively when she heard some footsteps closing in. You have to press against the wall. Mag pressed Hannah against the wall with resignation while he tilted to his side, and used the withered vines on the wall to hide them from sight. Let's go. Be careful and don't expose your identity, Mag said after the footsteps went far away. Hannah nodded, and quickly strode off with a blushing face. Mag waited for a brief moment before he continued on his way to the small courtyard. Walking along the small walkway, an orc who looked like a servant came toward him with a bundle of firewood. Mag stood to the side to let him pass. However, perhaps the bundle of firewood was too big, but he bumped into Mag accidentally when he walked past Mag. That middle-aged orc quickly put down the firewood, and slapped away the wood dust that got stuck to Mag's sleeves apologetically. He also stuffed a bamboo container into his hands. It's all right. You may go. Mag kept the bamboo container knowingly, and waved his hand in a friendly manner before he turned to leave. Meanwhile, that orc also picked up his firewood and left. Mag returned to his room in the small courtyard, and opened the bamboo container. It was the latest intel provided by the Grey Temple's informants, including updates on last night's incidents. The hairless monk battled Gary, Kurt, and Daryl and left after injuring Gary. The incident of the mysterious person blocking Basil from returning was recorded. There was also a list of the VIPs who would be here today. It included the chief of the Og tribe, Oster. This fellow Oster is indeed coming. Mag frowned. As the pro-war fanatic in the orc species, Oster always wanted to start a total war. There was also a hint of Oster and the Og tribe behind Gary's rebellion. He could be here to support Gary today. Once the Fok tribe and the Og tribe had a unified stance, then the Orcs would be a race that was going to try their best to start the war, and could no longer check and balance themselves from within. Seems like I will have to do something tonight. Mag tossed the bamboo container and the secret missive into the burning stove, and started to pace around in the room as he inwardly asked, System, are you selling the Be a Man for 3 seconds, TUI, the technique bag of returning to my peak power for 10 minutes? Not selling. I'm really paying you. With cash and not elephant pay. The system gravely warned, it's no use even if you pay with cash. Returning to your peak power for 10 minutes is a very important reward. If it happens too frequently or becomes available for sale, it will greatly diminish its value. Furthermore, before the host's body strength could completely recover, a certain damage would be done to your body every time you used this ability. If you used it too many times, it could even cause you to forever lose the ability to recover to your peak strength. Then, you should freaking give me the exact location of the black fog. I know it's in the palace roughly, but how am I going to ascertain its position and eradicate it in the remaining few hours? This is the mission's content. Without some difficulties, how could it be called a mission? System, what's my calling? To become a true god of cookery in this world. Then, why am I freaking required to come here to save the world? I am just a chef. A true chef has to learn how to save the world besides making delicacies that touch people. Shut up. Piss off. Amy and Babla were sitting on a short wall in the small courtyard, and talking to each other with wonder as they watched 2 orcs kneel on the ground, present 2 grilled fish to Ugly Duckling respectfully, and then press their foreheads to the ground respectfully. Ugly Duckling stared at the grilled fish on the plates with glowing eyes. However, it didn't rush to eat, and instead extended both its paws, and tapped lightly on the 2 orcs' heads. The 2 orcs looked up and bowed twice with their palms pressed together to Ugly Duckling excitedly and respectfully before getting up and leaving happily. Meow. Ugly Duckling only started eating the grilled fish happily after the 2 orcs went far away. Humph. This fellow will become super fat if it continues to cheat the people for its food here. It's not going to fly even if its wings grow out, Amy complained disdainfully as she looked at Ugly Duckling's increasingly rotund back. Do the ducks on your continent have to fly when they're fully grown? Is there an upper limit on their weight that they could be sent to the table? For example, 5 kilograms or 10 kg? Babla asked with wonder, even though she, too, had no idea how the ducks on the moon grew up. Oh, Amy's eyes lit up, and she thoughtfully said, "This is quite a good idea. Anyway, we can't put it into the oven if it gets too big." Ugly Duckling, which was happily eating, suddenly halted and turned around slowly with a terrified expression. "Eat, continue to eat. Must make yourself full." Amy had an innocent smile. Blah! Ugly Duckling opened its mouth, and a piece of fish fell to the ground. It looked at the 2 fish on the plate longingly, but after hesitating for a moment, it ran to Amy with a swinging tail. Its round body seemed rather agile on the pebble ground. It intended to jump into Amy's arms when it leaped in front of the short wall. Splat! However, it only reached about half of the wall's height before it crashed into Amy's feet, and slid down the wall gradually. "Ugly Duckling, don't you know your weight?" Amy looked down at Ugly Duckling. There was resignation in her smile. Ugly Duckling is really so stupid. Babla had already bent over with laughter, and she almost fell off the wall. Meow! Ugly Duckling looked up at Amy aggrievedly as it tried to regain its status by acting cute. Mag came out from his room, and walked to the short wall after he heard the laughter. He hugged Amy gently to prevent her from falling off as he smilingly asked, "What are you laughing about? Take a look, father. This fool Ugly Duckling is becoming fatter as it has duped the locals for food ever since it arrived," Amy replied, pointing at Ugly Duckling. "Did those people come to send it food deliberately again?" Mag glanced at that porcelain plate on the ground with surprise since last night. There had been chefs sending delicious food that they made specially to the small courtyard. However, it was not meant for them, but specified for Ugly Duckling. The Grey Temple's intel did mention that the Fok tribe worshipped an existence called the Flurkin. It should be some kind of mysterious and powerful feline species, and thus the Fok tribe was very respectful to all kinds of felines. "I heard they called Ugly Duckling Lord Flurkin. Is Ugly Duckling that species of cat?" Babla asked. "They really called Ugly Duckling Lord Flurkin?" Mag looked at Babla with surprise. "They didn't use this form of address easily." "Yes. Those 2 chefs called it that earlier, and they left very happily after Ugly Duckling touched their heads." Amy nodded in agreement. "Flurkin, orange cat. Could it be some kind of special coincidence?" Mag looked at Ugly Duckling with a frown. After pondering for a moment, he walked to the yard's door. "I need to go out for a while. You all be good and stay at home." "What is father going to do?" Amy looked at Mag's retreating back. "Maybe he has some important errands to run." Babla shrugged as she wasn't very interested. Mag got a shrine painting of Flurkin through Haman. This was something displayed in every home in the Fok tribe, so it wasn't anything rare. Haman wasn't suspicious when Mag asked to have a look. He only told Mag certain things that he should take note of when he passed him the painting, and he had to return it to him in time after he was done admiring it. From these details, Mag could see that Haman placed a great importance on this shrine picture and how much they respected Flurkin. Mag returned to the small courtyard, and unfurled the picture in his room. A giant fat orange cat was drawn right in the center on the paper made from animal skin with orangey yellow paint. It resembled those super fat cats that no longer cared about their figures. It seemed to have a ball in its tummy. The amazing thing was that there was a pair of white wings on the back of this orange cat. However, this pair of wings was different from those of the birds. They looked like 2 palm-sized fat and round clouds, which were like 2 cute decorations stuck on the orange cat's back. If it weren't for the big orange cat's bright piercing eyes that seemed to contain the starry sky and sea within them, Mag would have thought that it was some family's cat which had a pair of small wings stuck to it unwillingly. "Isn't it just a freaking orange cat?" Mag couldn't help swearing after studying that picture for a long time. He finally understood why those chefs were treating Ugly Duckling like a god. Apart from that pair of tiny wings on its back and being slightly slimmer, Ugly Duckling seemed to have walked out from this painting. The wings, Mag muttered. Ugly Duckling had a pair of symmetrical white wing patterns on its back too. Could this be some kind of coincidence? Although cats were not common house pets yet, he had seen many cats after coming to this world. The majority were black cats and white cats, followed by the grey ones and tortoiseshell ones. However, only they had the one and only of the usually commonly seen orange cats. Furthermore, everyone who had met Ugly Duckling would give it a second look with the expression that said, "How could there be a cat of this color in this world?" No matter if it is a black cat or a white cat, an orange cat that can fool people is a good cat. Mag rolled up the painting with a smile. Chapter 1557 I just don't want my stomach to be cut open. The envoy of the Gala tribe arrives. In the evening, the guests from all the other tribes arrived for the conferring ceremony. Announcements could be heard reverberating throughout the city towers. All kinds of flying steeds landed on the empty land outside of the city, and their esteemed riders were welcomed into the city. With the power of the entire tribe, the damaged part of the city wall had been completely repaired. Although certain sections hadn't been completely cleared, as long as they were completely destroyed, there were excuses to explain it. Gary stood on the tallest tower in the palace, and nodded his head as he watched this scene with satisfaction. Daryl stood behind Gary, and said in a grave voice, "Chief, we still haven't found any traces of the hairless monk and that mysterious attacker." However, they weren't able to rescue Ferdinand when they created the scene last night. Today, the powerhouses of all the Orc tribes are gathered here, and with the presence of the Og tribe's chief, Oster, they most likely wouldn't dare to come again. He still had lingering fears over last night's events. "If they dare to come here again, I will make sure they will never leave again," Gary said in a cold voice. Daryl continued, "Chief, we have accounted for last night's escaped criminals. Over 800, which is about 80% of the prisoners who were supposed to be executed today, have escaped. The troops have already gone to search for them with the hunting dogs. We should be able to catch a portion of them. Should we hang them according to our original plan? As long as Ferdinand didn't escape, it's meaningless regardless how many of them have escaped." Gary smirked, and continued, "Hang them. Of course we should hang them. I want everyone to know what the consequence of betraying me is. We are going to hang those fellows one by one after they are caught. No one will be able to escape." Daryl had an unnatural expression. He moved his lips before finally nodding. "Yes." Gary turned around, and said to Daryl in a low voice, "Daryl, I know Isaiah had treated you very well, and gave you a lot of assistance in your cultivation." "Yes." Daryl looked down and nodded. "Our Fok tribe has already lost 2 powerhouses recently, and we could barely hold on to our position as the number 2 Orc tribe." Gary smiled, but his voice was chilling. "I don't wish to lose another 10th tier powerhouse again. What do you think?" Daryl shivered, and quickly answered, "I think there wouldn't be another." "Very good." Gary reached out and patted gently on Daryl's shoulder. He smilingly said, "You may go on. There are plenty of things that you need to take care of." "Yes." Daryl felt a great relief as he turned to walk out. Gary looked at the boisterous tribe as spread his arms out wide, looked up to the sky, and smiled. "Are you seeing this, Isaiah? The Fok tribe is going to belong to me completely. You shouldn't have thought that I was joking when I said I would take back what belonged to me then. This is the handover procedure. We are handing them over to you now. However, we need to make sure that they are really dead, and we have to bring their bodies back." A prisoner's carriage stopped at the back door of the main kitchen. A scar-faced orc handed a craft paper to Haman, and after he was certain that Haman had signed, he kept the paper. Then, he waved his hand toward his back, and 2 orcs immediately dragged 2 prisoners with tattered clothes, and had their heads in black covers to the door. "All of you have worked very hard. I will send their bodies out after we remove their lungs." Haman chuckled and waved. Two chefs who were in charge of processing ferocious beasts came over, grabbed one of them each, and dragged them into the main kitchen. Haman followed them in. "Boss, are they really eating orcs' lungs?" "Don't lungs taste the worst?" an orc softly asked. "What the heck do you know? The chef who could make the chief issue an order personally can even make poop taste fantastic." The scar-faced orc spat and pursed his lips as he watched the prisoners being dragged away. "They will wish to be hanged rather than to have their lungs removed while they are alive." The two orcs who were grabbed struggled hard, but their limbs and bodies were tied by ropes. They were grabbed by a pair of strong hands as if they were chickens who were about to get slaughtered. Their struggles were futile. Haman followed after them, and lamented, "Please stop struggling. I will ask Mr. Mag to give you a quick death later. It would be better than being hanged at the gallows." The lady on the left burst out in tears upon hearing that. "Don't be afraid, Juliet. I am here. I am still here," Romeo yelled in a panic. They waved their hands frantically in midair. They grabbed hold of each other tightly when their hands finally touched in midair. "Don't be scared. I am here," Romeo consoled her. "I'm not scared. I just don't want my stomach to be cut open," Juliet sobbed. Romeo grasped Juliet's hands tightly, but he was at a loss for a reply. Haman brought them to the kitchen one. He knocked, and then said to Mag who came to answer the door, "Mr. Mag, I've brought them to you. They just came from the prison, so they do stink a little. Do I need to process them first?" Mag looked at the two prisoners that had their heads covered. He recognized them through their figures immediately, but he still pretended not to, and asked, "Are you sure that they are a pair of loving husband and wife?" "They are Romeo and Juliet, the model husband and wife in our folk tribe. No couple is more loving than the two of them in the entire tribe." Haman nodded as he looked at them with a piteous gaze. He went close to Mag, and said with a lowered voice, "They are good people. If possible, please don't make them suffer." "All right." Mag nodded as he opened the door, and said, "Send them in. I will process them myself. I need to start my preparation now, please don't disturb us if there is nothing important." "Yes. I will warn them." Haman nodded. The most important department in the main kitchen now was undoubtedly Kitchen 1. It was alright if the other table's flavors were a little substandard, but the VIP table had all the important people from all the orc tribes. It would be disastrous if there was a problem with the flavors. The strapping orcs placed Romeo and Juliet on the floor, and left immediately. Mag closed the door, and asked Babla to put up a spell formation to prevent people from invading and eavesdropping on them. Everyone came forward, and curiously looked at the two people in embrace on the floor. Mag had already informed all of them, and they knew that they would be sent over. Mag went up to pull off the black covers over their heads. The sudden brightness made the two of them close their eyes instinctively. They only opened their eyes after a moment, and were shocked to see Mag and the ladies crowding around them. Didn't they say that they want to remove their lungs to make a dish? Why did they look like a bevy of innocent beautiful ladies? Chapter 1558. Do you think that could be Boss Mag? Take my lungs if you need. Mine are big enough. Don't touch her. Romeo shouted at Mag as he tried to shield Juliet behind him. However, Juliet calmed down quickly. She looked into Mag's eyes, and said, "Take from both of us if you want. Didn't you say it's for husband and wife lung slice? We are a pair of husband and wife. It was my idea to bring the two of you here, and to make the husband and wife lung slice. However, I am not really going to extract your lungs." Mag went forward and made 2 slashes to cut the ropes binding them. He kept his cleaver, took 2 steps backward, and smiled. "Actually, we are good people." Romeo and Juliet were both shocked that the ropes binding them were suddenly cut. They saw that Mag, who had smiled and kept the cleaver, indeed didn't look like a butcher, so they couldn't decide at that moment. Romeo hugged the weak Juliet as he asked Mag, Then what do you intend to do? After going through what they had gone through recently, he no longer trusted anyone easily. He was worried that this was another of Gary's plots. Mag smiled. I am Mag, the boss and head chef of Mamie Restaurant in Chaos City. They are the restaurant's service staff. We are friends of Connie. She escaped to Chaos City when she was pursued, and then became a part of our restaurant. She asked us to come and save you. Connie. Connie is not dead. Romeo looked at Mag with surprise. Yes. She is not dead. Mag nodded. You said Connie and you are friends. Do you have any proof? And how are you going to save us if you are a chef from Chaos City? Juliet looked at Mag warily. His words seemed to be full of loopholes. If this was Gary trying to humiliate them before they died, she would rather have a quick death. You will understand after you watch this. Mag took out a photo stone, and swiped across its surface gently. A virtual image appeared in front of everyone, and it was Connie. I am Connie. Brother and all my relatives and friends, if you see the man with a mustache that has this photo stone, please believe what he is saying. We are trying our best to rescue you all now. Please listen to his instructions. The record wasn't long, and it disappeared after saying that. It's Connie. Romeo looked at Juliet for confirmation. Mag smiled. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. I think you guys know if it's necessary for Gary to toy around with you at this point of time or not. If he still wanted to extract any information from the two of you, he wouldn't be waiting until the day that you would be sent to the gallows. Juliet stood up with Romeo's help, and apologetically said to Mag, my apologies. Because we have been through too much recently, we could no longer trust strangers easily. Please don't mention it, madam. Mag nodded slightly. May I ask, where is Connie now? How is her situation? Romeo asked urgently. Connie has lost contact with us at the moment. However, she will definitely appear at the conferring ceremony tonight. Mag shook his head. He, too, was wondering where Connie could have gone. This won't do. She is just a little girl. She will be captured by Gary and executed together with Ferdinand if she appears at the conferring ceremony. Romeo shook his head and stomped his foot in a panic. Juliet similarly asked Mag, how can we get in touch with Connie? Today's conferring ceremony is very dangerous, and we cannot let her get herself in danger. The chief only left behind a son and a daughter. We already cannot rescue Ferdinand, and if Connie was also captured, then the Falk tribe would be completely in Gary's hands. I also couldn't get in touch with Connie now. She came back to rescue Ferdinand, so she won't be giving up so easily. Mag shook his head as he looked at their concerned faces, and continued, my lord and lady, if you want to leave here safely, please take what I am about to say to heart. Romeo and Juliet saw that Mag had no intention to continue their discussion, so they nodded after a moment of hesitation. I used the pretext of extracting your lungs to make them bring you here, and I made the husband and wife lung slice the highlight dish so I could buy us more time. There will definitely be chaos at the conferring ceremony tonight, and we will bring you along with us amidst it. However, in order to make the other party believe that I want the two of you as ingredients, you two will have to work with me, and lie on that table during this whole process. You can take a break during this process, and I will tell you what you need to do when it's time, Mag said with a grave expression. The two of them nodded. Romeo still wanted to say something. But the walls have ears, so please try to remain silent for this whole time. You two don't have to worry about the conferring ceremony, Mag interrupted Romeo's words straight away, and turned to walk to the stove. Perhaps they already have a plan, and we should remain quiet, Juliet said, tugging on Romeo's sleeve gently. Romeo nodded upon hearing that. Even though he had countless questions, he eventually forced himself to quit asking. Bro, why did father send us here to take part in this conferring ceremony? Didn't he despise Gary, that treacherous king slayer? Habeng asked Haga as he followed after him. Keep your voice low so we don't attract unnecessary trouble. Haga checked his surroundings before he said in a low voice, the Og tribe is pro-war. There was the Fok tribe's chief Isaiah maintaining the balance previously. However, Gary is taking over the position now, so father sent us to see which side he is going to stand on so our tribe can prepare in advance too. Then, which side are we going to stand on? Habeng scratched his head. Our tribe recuperated, and our people had a peaceful life during these 100 years of peace, so peace will be the best for us. Small tribes like ours will be cannon fodder once a war breaks out. Those big tribes would not care about us. Haga shook his head. That's true. There's no point in fighting a war. Habeng nodded. After a moment of thought, he smiled. I heard that a chef from Chaos City is responsible for tonight's banquet. Do you think that could be Boss Mag? Little boss, will she be here too? Haga had a silly smile. She should be. Boss Mag has never left Little Boss behind whenever he went on a trip. Habeng chuckled. Seems like we are in for a treat tonight. Night. Chapter 1559 Oster of the Og tribe. All the tribal representatives began to take their seats, but the seat for the guest of honor was still vacant. Many orcs couldn't help looking over there. Everybody knew whose seat it was. The Og tribe's delegation hadn't arrived yet, and apparently, Oster would be making the trip personally. Hence, it attracted even more attention. Meanwhile beyond the square, many ordinary Fok tribe's orcs had come to watch the ceremony. Witnessing the new chief's conferring ceremony was, without a doubt, a very important affair. It meant the Fok tribe would be entering into a new era from now on. People were reminiscing about the kindness of Chief Isaiah, but they still had to accept the reality of brutal Gary taking the throne. A platform was set up at the side, and dozens of gallows were set up on it in a row, with the ropes ready. Everybody knew very well what these gallows were for. Young Master Ferdinand, the son of the former Chief Isaiah, hadn't been executed yet. The era of Gary had arrived today, which meant the era of Isaiah had ended completely. All possible factors that could cause turmoil would be eliminated. Young Master Ferdinand was a kind and good person like the old chief. Compared to Gary, the majority of the orcs preferred him to be their new chief. However, such an incident was not going to happen. He would be hanged so no one would have an excuse to rebel against Gary. A golden flamingo flew toward the Fok tribe based in the canyon. A group of orcs in golden armor were standing on the flamingo's back. Are today's matters all properly arranged? The orc with a square face standing in the leading position asked in a low voice. They are all arranged, Chief, a young orc in golden armor answered respectfully. Very good. The square-faced orc looked down at the Fok tribe, and he couldn't help chuckling. Seems like it won't be long before the whole Twilight Forest is ours. Smiles gradually appeared on the faces of all the orcs in golden armor. The people on the ground soon discovered the glaring flamingo, and an orc instantly loudly declared, the Og tribe's delegation has arrived. Music sounded, and the Fok tribe used the highest standard of etiquette to receive the Og tribe's delegation. This fellow Oster still loves to show off that flamingo of his. On a cliff, Rex watched as the flamingo landed gradually. His gaze landed on that square-faced orc on the flamingo, and he narrowed his eyes slightly. Chief Oster has arrived. A captain strode in, and reported to Gary, who was in the midst of changing his clothes. He loves to be the last to arrive, doesn't he? He behaves as if it's his day today. Gary smirked with a dark expression as he let the palace maids arrange his clothes for him. The captain lowered his head as he dared not make a reply. Is the banquet ready? Gary asked again only after a while. Yes, we only need your order to commence the banquet, the captain respectfully replied. Let's go. I wanna go meet those old fogies. They love to laugh at me then. I want to see how many of them will be looking up to me today. Gary took the lead and strode to the door. Basil and the captain followed after him on both of his sides. "Chief, the defense in the inner city is all set up. No one will be able to break into the inner city again," Basil whispered behind Gary. "Good." Gary nodded slightly. In the square in front of the palace, most of the guests had already taken their seats. The most attention-grabbing 10 white tables were already filled with people. There was only one space left in that table in the center. Oster, who wore a suit of golden armor, was especially glaring. The chiefs or envoys of the top 10 orc tribes had already arrived, and only the main character of tonight's conferring ceremony hadn't made his appearance yet. The Fok tribe's chief Gary arrives. Right then, accompanied by a loud and clear announcement, Gary, who was wearing orange armor, strode surrounded by a crowd. Everyone looked at him in unison. "Long live the chief! Long live the chief!" The ambience became boisterous with the orcs' cheers. All the nobles in the Fok tribe stood up to welcome the arrival of Gary. Even many tribal representatives at the main table stood up to welcome him. Gary waved his hands to the Fok tribe's people first before he smiled at all the chiefs and representatives. "Thank you all for coming to my conferring ceremony. Your friendship will be remembered by the Fok tribe." "Chief Gary looks very energetic in this Flurkin armor today," Oster smilingly said to Gary. "Chief Oster's golden armor is even more dazzling. Those who have no idea may think that you are the one who is getting conferred today," Gary also replied to Oster smilingly. Their gazes collided in midair with a hint of explosiveness. All the orc chiefs and representatives looked at this scene with interest. The Fok tribe and the Og tribe always had a trying relationship. During Isaiah's times, their relationship was even very tense due to their different stances on diplomatic policies. However, apparently the Og tribe seemed to be behind Gary's stealing the throne and killing the king. Oster's coming to the conferring ceremony, too, had caused many reveries. If Gary was indeed supported in taking the throne by the Og tribe, then the balance in the Twilight Forest would be completely broken. The number 1 and the number 2 tribes would be able to decide the orcs' diplomatic stance. This was also what all the chiefs and representatives desperately wanted to know. However, judging from the hostility between them, the matter most probably wasn't as rumored. Gary didn't turn into Oster's loyal supporter, and this made many medium and small tribes heave a breath of relief. Oster chuckled at Gary. "Today's main character is definitely you, Chief Gary. The Fok tribe is the second largest orc tribe, and it will be ruled by you after today. To the Fok tribe, to the Twilight Forest, and to the entire orc tribe, this is a very important moment." Gary also hid his hostility and chuckled. The Fok tribe is definitely not going to let down the other tribes' expectations. We will make the orc species better together with the Og tribe. The ambience seemed to be much more cordial. The cheers and claps that had stopped for a while sounded again. "Let the banquet begin," Gary instructed the captain at the side, and then took his seat next to Oster. "Our esteemed guests have come a long way here. According to our Fok tribe's customs, we will have the banquet before starting the conferring ceremony." The captain went forward, and loudly said, "Start the banquet! Start the banquet!" The orders were passed down, and soon palace maids wearing the same uniforms came out with trays. "Is the Fok tribe's main kitchen still doing the same old dishes?" the Blue Sky tribe chief asked with a chuckle. Many chiefs and representatives who came to the Fok tribe for its banquet before also smiled after hearing that. In order to treat our esteemed guests, the chief specially invited a chef from Chaos City to take charge of the main table, the captain answered in a matter-of-fact tone. "Oh, really?" The chief of the Blue Sky tribe was surprised, and then swiftly said with anticipation, "Then, I would like to see what the food made by the chef from Chaos City tastes like." Chapter 1560 Can I borrow this chef for a few days? The first dish. Braised chicken, the captain loudly declared. The palace maids removed the covers on the trays at the same time. The chicken soup's rich aroma together with the shiitake mushrooms aroma emerged at the same time, and spread all over. "Smells so good! The eyes of all the orcs present lit up with disbelief. The palace maids placed a big bowl of braised chicken on the table before bowing and retreating. The braised chicken was only available on the 10 white jade tables. The orcs at the normal tables couldn't help looking over when they smelled the aroma. They wanted to know what kind of delicacy could give out this enticing scent. The VIPs from all the tribes also fixed their gazes on the braised chicken in the center of the table. There was a layer of gleam on the golden brown chicken pieces, and shiitake mushrooms were adorned among them. The rich aroma whiffed over and made them gulp. The Blue Sky tribe's chief was the first to pick up chopsticks, and chuckled before popping a piece of chicken into his mouth. "It smells fantastic. This dish looks good, so I will dig in now." The Blue Sky's chief's eyes lit up the moment the chicken entered his mouth. The cube of chicken was enshrouded in delicious broth, and the incredible flavor instantly set his taste buds alight as a maiden was seducing his taste buds with her delicate fingers, completely enthralling him in the process. After biting through the cube of chicken, he discovered that the texture of the meat was extremely tender. It was completely unlike the dry and rough roast chicken he usually had. Even after swallowing the mouthful of chicken, a fragrant aroma lingered in his mouth. "This is the best chicken dish ever. How could anybody in this world make chicken into such a delicious dish?" the Blue Sky chief praised with a glowing face. He had never had such scrumptious chicken meat before, or rather he should be saying that he had never had such scrumptious food before. All the orcs couldn't help smiling after they heard him. The Blue Sky chief was a famous foodie and definitely an orc who could be considered as someone who knew how to appreciate his food. The Blue Sky tribe was ranked 8th among all the tribes in the Twilight Forest. Although they were powerful, they were not very interested in fighting for territory, and got along well with all the other tribes. Hence, the Blue Sky chief was a regular visitor in all the tribes, and had tried all the tribes' dishes. Everyone wondered how the braised chicken that Billy heaped praises upon and which gave out such an enticing aroma tasted, so their curiosity was piqued. "Oh! This enticing taste! Is this really chicken? Apart from the pieces being too small, I can't find any shortcomings." Praises after praises were said with amazement. Everyone was bowled over by the scrumptiousness of the braised chicken. The guests who couldn't try the delicious braised chicken could only gulp as they smelled the aroma and listened to praises. Gary curled his lips slightly. Even though the banquet wasn't an important part of today's ceremony, it did gain him plenty of recognition. He also used the chopsticks to pop a piece of chicken into his mouth. The delicious taste blossomed in his mouth, and made his eyes glow. "This chef is interesting. His skills are way better than those of those old fogies in the main kitchen. He shall be in charge of my meals in the future then," Gary thought. The big bowl of braised chicken was soon finished, and the second dish was served right at this moment. The second dish read braised pork. The cover was removed, and a big terracotta bowl with red braised pork was placed on the table. The red braised pork had equal parts of fat and lean meat, and was shiny red. It was cut into big chunks, and the skin looked transparent and crystalline. The rich meat aroma chased away the remnants of the braised chicken's aroma, and snatched the center place forcefully. "Is this aroma going to subvert the number one pork in my heart?" Billy couldn't wait as he picked up a piece of red braised pork. The red braised pork that was cut into cubes had distinct layers of skin, fat, and meat. The glistening red color and the meaty aroma made his Adam's apple move instinctively. He straightaway opened his mouth, and popped the whole piece of red braised pork into his mouth. The usually chewy skin was easily bitten apart by his teeth, and the fatty meat underneath the skin melted away in his mouth. He could chew without any resistance. The sweet and soft red braised pork was fatty but not greasy. A gentle bite let the sweet juice out from the meat. The scrumptious taste of the red braised pork was released perfectly at this moment. His obsession about having a big mouthful of meat was satisfied, and the rich aroma blossomed in his mouth, making him lost within the richness. As he was a meat lover, the wild boar meat was naturally one of his favorites. But Billy had never eaten braised meat that was so deliciously cooked. It removed the stench of the wild boar completely while braising the meat to a perfection. It was fatty yet not greasy. All the orcs had commenced eating the red braised pork without waiting for Billy to make any comments. They were all lost in the scrumptiousness. Sounds of praises and laments could be heard one after another as they were completely enthralled. Boss Mag is still the absolute main character on the dining table even after changing a location, Habeng and Haga softly said as they each popped another big piece of red braised pork into their mouths with a silly smile. At first, they weren't very willing to make the trip to the Fok tribe, but now they were greatly satisfied. It was a rare chance to be able to enjoy Boss Mag's delicacies outside the restaurant. It smells so good. Haga also nodded with a silly smile. He swept his gaze in the crowd before retrieving it with a slight disappointment. Billy put down his chopsticks. Chuckling, he asked, "Chief Gary, where did you find this chef? Can I invite him to my tribe as a guest after the ceremony is over? If possible, I would also like to borrow him for a few days. This meat is simply too delicious," a chief at the side chimed in. Everyone began to have ideas on the chef. "I invited this chef, and given his skills, I have decided to make him stay here as the royal chef. You guys will have to wait some time before you can borrow him," Gary similarly replied with a smile. This banquet had given him a lot of prestige. It was not easy to find a chef like Mag. Gary had to make good use of him. The third dish, black pepper steak. The third dish was also served soon after. An individual helping of black pepper steak was served to everyone, and it took away all their attention again. Everyone is very satisfied with the dishes. We still haven't found any traces of Connie yet, and Ferdinand wasn't sent out, either. Camilla's voice appeared in the headset on Mag's ear. Mag raised his eyebrow a little as he listened to Camilla's live reporting. His concern now was where Connie was. What was she trying to do after breaking away from the pack? He would not be worried if she was with Rex. What he was worried about was that Rex was not in contact with her, and she might do something big suddenly during the conferring ceremony. That might cause the situation to go out of hand. Other than Oster, there were 8 other 10th-tier powerhouses from different tribes here today. It was naturally unrealistic for Connie to assassinate Gary at such a time. Even Rex would not be able to do it. Their failure last night meant that the plan to save Ferdinand had already failed unless there was a change in the situation. Right now, what he had to do was to look for the source of the black fog as quickly as possible, get rid of it, and bring Connie safely out of the Twilight Forest. "System, do you have cephalosporin?" Mag asked inside while he was preparing the insanely spicy gravy for the spicy grilled fish. "According to the recipe, you do not need cephalosporin for spicy grilled fish," the system said sternly. "Didn't you say that as the god of cookery, one should have his own sense of judgment and decisiveness?" Mag pressed his lips together, and said, "Give me a serving of cephalosporin for 100 people. I'll pay 10 times the original price." Ding! The cephalosporin has been delivered. Note: while consuming the cephalosporin, do not take in alcohol. It would cost you your life, the system said joyously. "All right," Mag replied as he split the capsule and scattered the powder on the grilled fish. An orc would not die from a little cephalosporin because of their body constitution. Just having meat alone is so boring. "Chief Gary, don't you have the best wine brewer in the entire Twilight Forest in your tribe? Where's the alcohol?" Billy asked Gary with a smile. "Serve the alcohol," a guard standing at the side ordered. A group of palace maids came over, daintily carrying vats of wine, and walked up to the orcs. They filled up a large ceramic bowl with the alcohol for each of the orcs, and the fragrance of the alcohol diffused in a moment. Billy picked up the big bowl and took a sip. He said with satisfaction, "Great wine." With good food and good wine, this banquet made all the orcs very satisfied. They even forgot that they came today for Gary's conferring ceremony. There were even those who were already tipsy after gulping a few large bowls of alcohol. There were some who toasted to Gary from time to time, but Gary did not drink much. Even if the others were drunk, he couldn't be drunk. The conferring ceremony had yet to begin. If he got drunk, then the conferring ceremony would be ruined. Oster did not eat much as well, and also only took a few sips of wine out of courtesy. He leaned back in his chair and watched Gary and the other fellows who looked like they hadn't eaten good food before. The corner of his lips curled up in a seemingly mocking smile. The fifth dish, spicy grilled fish. The grilled fishes at least a meter long were served on the dining tables. The moment the metal covers were lifted, the spiciness that assailed everyone made them close their eyes instinctively. However, their noses found joy in the pungent spiciness. After the steam dispersed, everyone looked at the dish clearly, and could not help but hesitate a little. The large fish that was served on the plate was something rare in the twilight forest, and just a look at the layer of chili spread on top of the fish made one's body start to heat up. The smell alone burned their throats. Could this really be eaten? Chili was not a spice that could be found in the twilight forest. It was all brought over by merchants, and then sold at high prices to the nobles in the Orc tribes. Putting some chili in their food during the winter could bring them warmth and stimulation to their taste buds, and that was how chili slowly got in trend in recent years. Therefore, chili was not foreign to them. However, they usually put very little chili in their food, in amounts smaller than the size of their nail, and that was already the limit for most orcs. The amount of chili spread on the fish was probably the amount that an ordinary orc would take in his entire life. Therefore, all the passion for food and praises for the head chef suddenly stopped when this spicy grilled fish was served. Everyone exchanged gazes all of a sudden, and no one dared to try the food first. Who uses chili like this? Is the chef a blockhead? Oster said with a laugh. The pungent smell made his eyes hurt. It looked as though it could not be eaten. Gary also frowned. However, he quickly smiled, and said, "The chef must have his reason for doing this. Didn't the previous few dishes please everyone? There is nothing much to nitpick about other than the portions being too small," Billy said as he nodded in agreement. He picked up his chopsticks, and reached for the spicy grilled fish as he said, "Then let me have a go at this spicy grilled fish, and see how spicy it actually is. If we talk about tolerance for spiciness, no orc will be able to beat me." His chopsticks dug into the slightly crispy fish skin, and picked up a piece of fish meat. Billy paused for a while. As a foodie, he still chose to dip the meat in the gravy before putting it into his mouth. Clack! Clack! It was as though time had stopped. Billy had not taken his chopsticks out of his mouth. Everyone watched quietly as his face turned red instantly. Everything was eerily still and quiet. What is this feeling? Why did my taste buds lose their function suddenly? It's a little numbing, and there's a little pain. Could there be poison in this fish? Billy was completely frozen, but his mind was in complete chaos. The pain only lasted for a moment, and after that came an explosion of numbing spiciness. As a chief that loved spicy food, Billy would often have chili in his food every now and then. Therefore, spiciness was not a foreign taste to Billy. However, the explosion of spiciness felt as though he had suddenly leaped from a small pond into a big ocean, with the huge waves crashing right into his face. He felt as though a 10th-tier fire magic caster had stuffed a ball of flame into his mouth as his cavity and throat ignited instantly. However, just when the spiciness reached his upper limit, and he was about to spit the meat out, the freshness of the fish crept into the limelight. The crispy fish skin and tender meat were like a beauty that walked out from a lava bath, stepping on his burning throat and tongue to bring him an extraordinary experience. Roar! After sitting quietly for 5 seconds, Billy suddenly leapt up, and let out an angry roar. However, there was a twist at the end of the roar. It was filled with a joyful tone. Billy picked up his bowl of wine, and took a large gulp with a face full of amazement, saying, "This spiciness is on another level. But the freshness of this grilled fish is 1 in a million. I feel as though only this level of spiciness is good enough for the freshness of this grilled fish." He did not have the time to go on further. Billy picked up another piece of fish with his chopsticks, and put it into his mouth. The moment he stopped, the spiciness and numbing sensation would be prolonged. As long as he did not stop eating, it was as though he could lie to his taste buds, and it would become an enjoyable sensation. Is it that good? The orcs looked at Billy, who couldn't stop eating, and were still a little suspicious. However, some of them still picked up their chopsticks, and gave the fish a try. There were fire spitting, screeching, spinning on the spot, jumping around. The different chiefs and nobles started their performance in the middle of the banquet. Chapter 1562 Everything might be different once you're awake. Gasp! The chiefs of the various tribes were dancing around on the conferring ceremony, all because of the orcs sitting on the ordinary seats were all shocked by the scene. They would only be able to witness a scene like this once in 100 years, so they all could not help but tiptoe and crane their necks to watch the show. Is there a need for such a reaction by coupling his dish and my wine? Hannah stroked her chin curiously as she stood amidst the crowd. So which is better, his dish, or my wine? As the goddess of wine, she naturally would have her pride. However, as she watched the nobles perform, she started to become curious about Mag. Hannah had always thought that Mag was a very good spy since he was chosen by the organization to do such an important mission. However, he turned out to be a chef, and a very good one at that. When this is over, I must get him to cook up a good meal for me. If it's really that good, then, even if I don't really want to, he must really count his lucky stars. Hannah stomped her feet shyly, and started blushing because of her thoughts. An orc with a straw hat rushed into a small alley outside the city. He looked at Durward, who lay crouching on the city wall, and said, "Lord Durward, there are people guarding every exit, and more than 10 of our men have already been caught. What should we do now?" Durward turned his head to ask that orc, "How many of our men have managed to sneak in?" "A little more than 50, including those who lay in ambush inside last night." "That's too few." Durward frowned. "Last night, they wreaked havoc in the inner city, and ended up caught in Gary's trap. Luckily, a group of mysterious people came to their rescue. Not only did they manage to escape unscathed, but even the orcs that were imprisoned because of the former chief were also released. However, in order to escape arrest, most of them had fled from the inner city. In the end, Gary managed to fix the city wall within a night, and even deployed more army to watch the gates. Today was Gary's conferring ceremony and also the day young Master Ferdinand would be executed. If they didn't do something today, once young Master Ferdinand was executed, it would be even harder to pull Gary down. "We'll move in batches. Infiltrate the inner city at any cost. We must get more of our men into the inner city before the conferring ceremony starts," Durward said solemnly. "Yes," the orc answered and left. "Durward, you guys want to get in, right?" Just then, a deep voice sounded from the alley. "Who is it?" Durward looked towards the alley. A glow was already starting to form at the tip of his magic caster's staff. The young orc also pulled out his long sword nervously as he looked back at the alley. "I'm Kernan, Jeremy's henchman." The orc walked out of the shadows slowly with his hands up. "Stop there!" Durward shouted. He looked at Kernan warily, and said, "Take another step forward, and I will turn you into a pile of ashes. Speak, what did Jeremy send you over for? Don't misunderstand. I have no ill intentions, and Jeremy did not send me over," Kernan said, standing still as he looked at Durward. "Jeremy has a few dogs, and you're the most famous one of them all. Do you think I will believe you?" Durward scoffed. He looked into the alley behind Kernan a little uneasily. "If I was on his side, you would already be surrounded by the troops led by Daryl or Kurt and killed on the spot, your heads hanging on masts." Kurt put his hands down and looked at Durward. He lowered his voice, and said, "Maybe you're not aware of it yet, but your head is now worth 1 million copper coins. When Durward heard that, he frowned. He thought for a while before putting his magic caster's staff down. He looked intently at Kernan, and said, "What do you want?" "I owe Chief Isaiah a favor. Back then, he saved my mother, who was picking herbs, from a tiger. Of course, that might be an insignificant event for the chief. A person as kind as him must have done a lot of similar deeds, but for my mother who came back with the herbs, and pulled me back from the verge of death, I owe him both my mother's life and my life. A person like him should not have died like that," Kernan said with sorrow. "Cut all that hypocrisy. When the rebellion army broke through the city wall, you were standing right beside Jeremy. Have you ever thought of sparing the chief and his family?" Durward questioned angrily. "I was unable to stand by the chief's side." Kernan's gaze became dimmer. However, he still looked into Durward's eyes, and said, "But I let Princess Connie off. I think she survived. Gary did not manage to find her. You were the one who let Connie off." Durward and the other orcs were overjoyed when they heard it. "I didn't have the ability to save the chief, and could only do a little to save Princess Connie. I still owe Chief Isaiah a lot," Kernan said. "So why are you here today?" Durward looked at Kernan with bewilderment. "Today is the day of the conferring ceremony. Gary wants to execute young Master Ferdinand in front of everyone, and therefore get rid of any possible chances of overthrowing him. If young Master Ferdinand died, the chief would only be left with Princess Connie. Even the chief's loyal guard might not be able to help her become the new chief. Therefore, tonight will be the last chance." Kernan looked at Durward and took 2 steps forward. He lowered his voice, and said, "I'm in charge of guarding the southwestern gate today. These men I chose to bring with me are all my people. All of you, change into black armor, and when you see 3 torches lit at the southwestern gate, make use of the darkness of the night. I'll let you all in." Durward was overjoyed when he heard that. He grabbed Kernan's hand, and said, "If we succeed today, we will definitely thank you greatly when the young master regains control of the Fok tribe. That's what I should do. It's very dangerous after you get into the city. All of you must be very careful." Kernan grabbed Durward's hand back, and gave him a tight handshake before turning to leave quickly. "Don't just drink. Come, have some sef fish." Mag chuckled happily as he hosted the orcs from the alley near the door who came to collect the corpses. He put a freshly grilled fish in front of them and filled their wine cup. "This wine, this fish, perfect, superb," an orc with a scar stuttered as he hugged a wooden pillar at the side. The orcs at the side drank another 2 bowls of wine and lay on the ground, drunk, with a foolish smile hanging on their faces. "All right, have a few more drinks. Everything might be different once you're awake." Mag put the vat of wine down, and walked out of the alley, smiling. "Serve the last dish. It's time for us to watch the show," Mag said as he entered the kitchen and took his apron off. Upon hearing that, Haman could not help but gasp in awe. Mr. Mag is Mr. Mag indeed. He really lives up to his name. His main worry about such occasions would be whether the guests at the main banquet tables would be satisfied with the dishes. After all, they were all distinguished guests from various tribes, so they might have their own preferences and habits. Thus, even an experienced chef would not be able to satisfy everyone. But Mag did it today. He used delicacies to break the habits and preferences of individuals, and turned this banquet into a festival. "Are all the dishes served?" Haman asked. He said that there was still one last dish. "After that, we're done," that palace maid answered. Husband and wife lung slice, Haman's smile slowly disappeared. He was not unfamiliar with Romeo and Juliet. They were a pair of kind nobles who loved exquisite food. They were also very kind to others. If the rebellion had not happened, they would not have ended up like that. "Go on. Be careful. It's the last dish, nothing must go wrong." Haman raised his hand to signal the palace maid to go off. The palace maids brought the final dish out, and Haman strolled over to kitchen one slowly. Just as he was about to knock on the door, Mag pushed the door open and walked out. "Supervisor Haman, what a coincidence. I was about to look for you," Mag said to Haman. "Oh? What is it, Mr. Mag?" Haman asked with a smile. Mag smiled, and said, "The dishes have all been served, and the chief's conferring ceremony was such a rare occurrence, not to mention it's the conferring ceremony of a big tribe like the Fok tribe. I was thinking if I could bring my child and ladies to watch the ceremony. Tonight's banquet was very successful. The nobles from the other tribes were full of praises for your cooking. Since the dishes are all served, if you want to watch the ceremony, I can report to the higher UPS and bring you guys along," Haman said with a smile and a nod. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Supervisor Haman," Mag said gratefully, and appeared to be very excited. Haman glanced into the kitchen and hesitated as he started. "The husband and wife, they left very peacefully," Mag said with a smile. "That's great. That's great." Haman looked at Mag with a complicated expression. He nodded and turned to leave. "The couple has been moved successfully, and so were the fellows in the back alley," Babla said softly as she appeared behind Mag. Mag nodded slightly, and softly said, "Very good. Let's get ready to watch the ceremony. If there's a chance, we still have to give it a try." "Father, what was the powder that you put into the grilled fish just now?" Amy asked curiously as she walked beside Mag. "It's a kind of drug that would make our enemies a lot easier to handle," Mag explained with a smile. "In the end, he only added the cephalosporin to the fish for Gary's table. Based on their strength as a 10th tier, and their body constitution, the amount that he added would only help the alcohol in Hannah's wine kick in, so they would get drunk more easily. Other than saving Ferdinand, Mag's most important mission tonight would be to find the source of the black fog and get rid of it. He had to ensure that he could be in control of the situation while carrying out his mission, so a good way to lower his enemies' abilities would be to make them drunk. The black fog was the top priority for tonight, so he was willing to use any method or means. Cover Ugly Duckling with its black sack so others don't see it." Mag pulled out a black cloth bag and covered Ugly Duckling with it, only leaving half of its head out for it to breathe. "Meow," Ugly Duckling peeked its head out, and looked at Mag with bewilderment. "Ugly Duckling, do as I taught you later, and I'll prepare grilled fish specially for you without chili," Mag said with a smile to Ugly Duckling. Degree, meow, meow, meow." Ugly Duckling's eyes shone like little stars. Haman arranged things very quickly, and in about 10 minutes, Mag and the rest were seated in a glossy black horse-drawn carriage bringing them to the venue. Mag lifted a corner of the curtain to look out through the window. There weren't many people on the streets, but there was an orc guard every 20 meters or so. The security was very tight. On the way, they were even stopped 3 times for checks, but since Haman applied for an all-access pass, they could go through very smoothly with almost no checks at all. The horse-drawn carriage came to a halt. "We've arrived." The unnatural voice of the coachman came amidst the chaotic noises. Mag and the rest alighted from the horse-drawn carriage, and arrived at the outer ring of the venue. The place was filled with people, and the dozens of torches lit the place up brightly. The banquet was coming to an end, and the palace maids had started to clear the plates. This meant that the conferring ceremony was about to begin. The coachman sternly said, "According to the regulations, all of you can only watch the ceremony from here. You're not allowed to go anywhere. I will be watching all your movements here. If any of you violates the rules, I will bam." With a swift move, the unfinished words, together with the coachman, were stuffed into the carriage. Mag stopped the horse-drawn carriage at the side where most of the carriages were parked. He turned to the others, who were looking at him in shock, and said, "Let's go in front to take a look." Then, he walked ahead. "Wow, I feel that boss is getting cooler," Yabimiya told Elizabeth softly. Elizabeth frowned slightly. She looked intently at Mag's back thoughtfully, and somehow found it very familiar, but she could not seem to put her finger on it. The masked man unknowingly surfaced in her mind. Babla made a path through space distortions so that they could easily squeeze to the first row and take a good spot. Have you found her? Mag said softly towards the walkie-talkie. I haven't found traces of Connie. I will continue to keep a lookout for her. Camilla's voice came over quickly. Be careful, Mag reminded her. He watched the figure in orange armor slowly make its way towards the elevated platform. Needless to say, that had to be the main character of today's conferring ceremony, Gary the Kingslayer. Looks aside, that orange armor was enough to put Mag to shame. It gave off an orangey vibe. Of course, what Mag cared about most was whether he had the aura of the black fog on him. Mag's current top suspect was Gary. He did have the aura of the black fog and evilness on him. However, it was way weaker compared to that on Borg and Alfred. It might be because the black fog is still quite small. Irina's voice came from the headset. Chapter 1564. All his life, he had never been a letdown to Lord Flurkin's choice. There were a lot of powerhouses present. At the main table in the center was an orc in golden armor. He should be the most powerful orc in the entire race, SAHDR. Compared to the other 10th tier powerhouses at the same table, his aura was way greater. Of the top 10 orc tribes, 4 of the chiefs came and 3 other tribes sent their representatives. They had very distinct characteristics that showed which tribes they were from. Before he came, Mag read up on a lot of information about the orc tribes, so he had a certain level of understanding for each of the tribes. The Fok tribe was a little weaker compared to the Og tribe. However, the former chief, Isaiah, used his charisma and kind attitude towards the other tribes to garner a lot of support from the other tribes. Therefore, the Fok tribe could be in a sort of equilibrium with the Og tribe. After Isaiah passed away in the rebellion, this equilibrium was tipped. Most of the tribes who sent representatives over supported the Fok tribe and stood on their side previously. There were 2 other tribes who simply didn't send anyone over to attend the conferring ceremony. The chiefs of the 2 tribes were pretty close with Isaiah. SAHDR and Gary had an ambiguous relationship. Mag could not possibly do anything during the conferring ceremony, so he could only wait for the ceremony to end and the audience to leave before finding a chance to take action. Gary went up the elevated platform in the middle of the venue. The 4 torches blazing at each of the 4 corners of the elevated platform lit his orange armor up brightly. Thank you all for coming to the Fok tribe chief conferring ceremony, the captain shouted at the top of his lungs below the stage. Our new chief, Chief Gary. He will be crowned as king, witnessed by Flurkin, and become the new chief of the Fok tribe. There was a roar of applause and cheers. Gary looked at the orcs who were cheering for him, and the corners of his lips slowly rose. He had been waiting for this moment long enough. More than a century ago, he was downstage, looking at Isaiah standing up here while getting crowned as the people cheered and Flurkin congratulated him, thus casting Gary far behind him. From that moment on, he swore to himself that one day, he would take over Isaiah's place and stand up here openly to step all over those fellows who once mocked and ridiculed him, and to make everyone applaud and cheer for him. Now, he finally did it. Isaiah was dead. The ones who mocked him were all dead. Gary opened his arms wide, and loudly said, "This is the choice of the mighty Flurkin. He bestowed upon me great strength to carry the responsibility of leading the Fok tribe onwards. I, Gary Belloc, shall inherit Lord Flurkin's will and become the ruler of the Fok tribe." He shone and glimmered under the bright lights. The people of the Fok tribe were all looking at him. There were ardent supporters and also those in deep sorrow. Father, look. That uncle is dressed in the same color as Ugly Duckling, Amy said, looking surprised as she pointed at Gary. Meow. Ugly Duckling let out a soft meow, and cast a disdainful glance at Gary. Yes. Mag's lips moved as he tried hard to suppress his laughter. He looked around, and saw the execution stage not far away. There were dozens of gallows standing on the stage, and that looked rather creepy. If nothing went wrong, Ferdinand, whom they had searched for in vain, would soon be brought up to the gallows, and would then be publicly executed, marking the start of Gary's era. Isaiah is the Folk tribe's criminal. During his rule, he went against and insulted Lord Flurkin, put the evil people in power, and harmed the ordinary people. Gary started to list the 10 crimes that Isaiah committed during his reign. Each of the crimes was abhorrent, portraying Isaiah as an immoral and violent ruler. The nobles sitting at the normal tables started agreeing loudly, as though the ruler that they were proud of just a few months ago suddenly killed their fathers. In contrast, the ordinary orcs were rather quiet. Several of them lowered their heads in silence. This fellow really cannot be compared to Isaiah. Oster looked at Gary, who was glowing, and scoffed. He leaned back in his chair in a relaxed manner. He was here today to watch a show, and hopefully he would not be disappointed. Of the chiefs and representatives present, some of them were gloating, while some were silent. Lord Flurkin chose me to end Isaiah's reign to save our people from misery. There are still some who have yet to give up, and are attempting to reinstate the tyrant ruler's reign by helping the tyrant ruler's son become the new tyrant. Gary pointed towards the gallows. A secret passageway appeared on the ground in front of the execution stage. A frail young orc was brought out through the passageway with his hands tied together. Its young master Ferdinand. The people from the Folk tribe recognized the young orc very quickly, and could not help but exclaim in astonishment. "He's Ferdinand!" Mag looked at the frail young orc. He looked around 16 to 17 years old, and he had short, messy brown hair. He was so pale that there was almost no color to him, and had a pair of pinkish-white orc ears on his head, exactly like Connie's. Indeed, he was just like Hannah described him, a meek bottom with weak kidneys. However, what shocked Mag the most was his pure black eyes. There was not a single white in those eyes that remained eerily black under the flaming torches. There's an evil aura on him too. It is similarly very faint, but there's something sinister about it, yet I can't put my finger on it. Irina's voice sounded in Mag's ear. "How is this possible?" Mag squinted. He looked at Ferdinand in bewilderment as the latter was brought up the execution stage step by step. He was Connie's brother, the one she risked her life to save, and was even the eldest son of the former chief Isaiah. How could he have an evil aura? Ferdinand's appearance caused quite a commotion. The nobles were still cursing as they concurred with Gary, while the ordinary orcs behind the fence started to surge forward. "Young Master Ferdinand is such a kind person. He's kind and loyal, just like the former chief. Yay, what a pity. He should have become our new chief." Some of the older orcs could not help but lament in pity. The guards standing in front of the fence started to hit the orcs who were rushing forward with the batons in their hands. At the same time, they pulled out their swords and sabers to warn the crowd to back off. Amidst the crowd, Durward raised the magic caster's staff in his hand slowly. There were many orcs who had squeezed their way to the front, and they also pulled out the weapons they'd hidden under their coats. Gary looked at Ferdinand, who already had the rope put around his neck, with a scoff and said, "Ferdinand, you and Isaiah committed heinous crimes against the Folk tribe. Today, you shall be hung to death on this execution stage to end the dark period of your family's reign. Do you have anything else to say? If the 100 years that my father led the Folk tribe through are considered a form of torture and harm, please let me offer my most sincere apologies right here on his behalf." Ferdinand looked at the orcs around, and said in a loud and sincere voice, "He died in the hands of his most trusted brother. The city gates were opened by rebels, and the palace was attacked by the rebellion army. In order to protect his dignity as chief and the glory of Flurkin, he fought till the very last moment. All his life, he had never been a letdown to Lord Flurkin's choice, to the people, and to his children, as a ruler and a father." The shouting nobles slowly grew silent. They started to look away, afraid to meet eyes with Ferdinand. "Isaiah! Isaiah! Isaiah!" Behind the fence, the orcs started shouting with fury as the crowd started pushing forward. Gary's expression changed, and he quickly said, "Lies to deceive the people. Execute him." Chapter 1565. I didn't have a choice in the past. The expressions of the nobles who were sitting in the VIP area were also a little different. They knew very well what kind of chief Isaiah was to the Folk tribe for the past century, and they did not have to bootlick a tyrant ruler every day out of fear back then. The chiefs and representatives of the other tribes looked at Ferdinand with different expressions. Some of them felt sympathy, while others felt pity for this only son of Isaiah. Billy looked at Ferdinand as he lamented, "What a pity! If there hadn't been a rebellion, he would have been the next Isaiah of the Folk tribe. If he had a child, then they would be the ruler of the Twilight Forest." He could see Isaiah in him. Hee. Interesting. Oster crossed his legs as he carried on watching the show. He looks like a bottom, but he talks like a top. Mag was surprised by Ferdinand. From the corner of his eyes, he could see some of the orcs around him pulling out their weapons. It seemed like chaos would begin soon. He lowered his voice, and asked, "Have you found her?" "Not yet," Camilla replied. "She's not here." Mag frowned. Camilla would not have missed Connie with her night vision ability, but why wouldn't she be here today at such an important moment? "Young master." Durward teared up. He watched Ferdinand intently, as though he saw the former chief standing on the elevated platform saying his oath back then. The young master's speech and behavior were in no way a shame to the former chief's reputation, and he also did not disappoint his supporters. The orcs pulled out their weapons, and their eyes glimmered. They were willing to give their all, including their lives, for the future of the Folk tribe. Gary was a little taken aback by Ferdinand's words. The nephew, who appeared to be bad with words, suddenly coming up with a speech like this really caught him off guard. Not only did Gary not enjoy the thrill of being victorious, Ferdinand's words even made the violence that he had been suppressing all this while break free. "Execute him," Gary ordered coldly as he spat the words syllable by syllable. "This fellow is just as hateful as his father. Gary, you usurped the throne by killing the king, your brother. Lord Flurkin would never choose someone like you to become the chief of the Folk tribe." Ferdinand continued loudly. "People, in the name of Lord Flurkin, let's fight back. Let's kill the King Slayer. Let's bring the Folk tribe back to where it belongs, under the glory of Lord Flurkin. Fight back." Gary looked around at the people below the stage and outside. He smirked, and said, "I do want to see who dares to go against me." Whoosh! An arrow came flying over from the darkness, shooting the orc who was about to hang Ferdinand right between his brows, and pinning him to the gallows. Orcs who were lying in ambush everywhere in the venue started dashing towards the guards as though a signal had been sounded, making their way towards the execution stage. When Gary saw those orcs dashing in the crowd, he gave a stern order. "Kill them! PSSST!" Just then, there was a sound of something tearing. Gary lowered his head and looked at the dagger that pierced right through his abdomen. He then turned his head around, and watched in disbelief and shock as Basil lowered his hands and took 2 steps back. He swayed and fell to his knees as he put his hand over his chest. He looked at Basil with anger and indignation as he asked, "Why? Chief Gary?" Everyone could not help but exclaim at the scene. They watched in disbelief as Basil successfully assassinated Gary, causing him to fall to the ground, and seriously injuring him. Basil was Gary's best general, and also his trusted aide. How could he suddenly assassinate him at this moment? The chiefs and representatives from the other tribes could not sit still anymore. At first, they thought they were just here to attend a conferring ceremony. They did not expect the situation to turn so chaotic. All of a sudden, they had no idea what to do. Counter-strike? A spy? A double agent? Mag was completely baffled when he saw that scene. After Ferdinand's life was no longer threatened, and Gary's top general turned around to injure him, the situation was totally reversed. Mag was unable to foresee this situation based on the information the Grey Temple gave him. He also did not expect that Basil, the 10th tier orc that Gary trusted, a fellow who looked so honest and loyal, would actually turn against him suddenly. "Basil, what are you doing?" Daryl and Kurt, who were both standing below the stage, shouted almost simultaneously while looking at Basil in shock. "I am doing the right thing according to Lord Flurkin's guidance." Basil looked at Daryl and Kurt, and sincerely said to them, "I didn't have a choice in the past, but right now, I want to be a good person and choose a good chief for the tribe." "Ferdinand! Ferdinand! Chief Ferdinand!" The chants got louder, and the voices very quickly echoed around the entire venue and the entire inner city. Everyone swarmed up to the execution stage and shouted Ferdinand's name. Even the nobles started to join in the chants. "Daryl, Kurt, kill this betrayer and Ferdinand for me. In the future, the three of us will rule different parts of the Falk tribe together," Gary said to gritted teeth to Daryl and Kurt. Daryl's and Kurt's expressions changed. They exchanged glances and could see the hesitation in each other's eyes. Gary's words were very enticing, no doubt, but now that the situation had gotten out of hand, even they might not be able to kill Basil and Ferdinand to regain control. To all the tribesmen who had been threatened or beguiled by Gary, "If you can wake up and join me in punishing the Kingslayer, the crimes that you've once committed can be pardoned. I guarantee that from today onwards, I will let bygones be bygones," Ferdinand announced loudly on the execution stage after the chains and ropes on him were removed. "Gary killed his brother to usurp the throne, beguiled and threatened us. His crimes are punishable by death. Daryl is willing to obey the command of young Master Ferdinand." Daryl was the first to kneel in front of Ferdinand. Kurt quickly kneeled down as he loudly proclaimed, "Kurt is willing to obey too." You too?" Gary was stupefied. He did not think that on the day of the conferring ceremony, there would be so much betrayal going on. He turned to Oster, and pleaded, "Chief Oster, please help me to rid my tribe of the betrayers. After this, I would definitely keep my promise. This is the internal affairs of the Falk tribe. I represent the Og tribe. It's not appropriate for me to intervene too much in case of unnecessary trouble. Please settle this yourself," Oster said with a smile. Chapter 1566 Every one of you has to die. So, whose conferring ceremony are we here to attend today? Habeng asked softly. Haga instead pointed at a few figures in the crowd, and asked, "See, is that Boss Mag and the little boss? Seems like them." Habeng looked at where he was pointing, and nodded when he saw the familiar white double ponytails. Mag narrowed his eyes when he looked at Oster and Ferdinand, who had a faint smile on the gallows. The developments had indeed exceeded his expectations in many areas. Ferdinand's heroic speech had gained him the support of many ordinary orcs. Basil's lethal betrayal had seriously injured Gary before he made that classic speech. Oster, who was supposed to support Gary, chose to watch the show at the side and not interfere at this time. This meant he was going to watch Gary fail completely. Mag wasn't going to believe all these were pure coincidence. It reeked of a conspiracy, and combining all the factors, they all converged onto Ferdinand. This thin and weak youth was obviously in charge of the entire situation this whole time as he retaliated one step at a time and established his prestige and status. He was so scheming that he didn't resemble a youth. Mag even thought that there was some connection between him and Oster. The Kingslayer was utterly isolated, while the prince returned to save his people living in dire suffering, and became the new chief whom his people adored. This show seemed rather good. Wow! Seems like Connie's big brother is someone very formidable. He didn't even need us to subdue the bad guys. Yabimiya was amazed. Then, did big sister Connie receive the news in advance, and that's why she didn't come? Amy asked curiously. Mag also thought of a certain possibility when he heard that. If Connie met Ferdinand last night, and they had a conversation, it became completely plausible as to why she didn't appear in the team to kidnap the chief today. However, Mag still felt that something wasn't quite right. Where did the evil presence on Ferdinand come from? If Gary died today, then the source of that black fog and the clues would all point to Ferdinand. He couldn't ignore that point. Without his power, without his subordinates' loyalty, and without the powerful external assistance, Gary shakily stood up with his hand upon his chest as he looked at Ferdinand with a pathetic smile. He chuckled with self-deprecation. Even Isaiah had perished in my hands. I didn't expect to suffer a defeat in your hands, little imp. I didn't expect you would have such shrewdness and maneuvers that even my most trusted subordinate has become your man. Ferdinand calmly replied, the Fog tribe is loyal to Lord Flurkin. They simply only obey the Lord's instructions. Gary, from the moment you disobeyed the Lord's will and instructions, you were already destined to lose. Flurkin doesn't exist. There are no gods in this world. Evil and terror are coming to this world eventually, and nobody is able to stop all this. Gary suddenly exclaimed agitatedly. His gaze swept over the crowd as he revealed an eerie smile. He reached back to grab that dagger that was lodged in his chest, and pulled it out. He then stabbed it hard into his heart with that weird smile on his face as he said, every one of you, has to die. Every one of you, has to die. This terrible mutter lingered on in everyone's ears for a long time before it finally went away. Gary's body collapsed to the ground slowly, and blood unhurriedly spread out beneath his body. His eyes were still staring at the pitch-dark sky with an eerie smile, as if he was welcoming something. Everyone was looking at Gary's body with fear on their faces. What was the meaning of the words that he said before he died? It made them fearful. Evil and terror are coming to this world eventually. Every one of you, has to die. Mag looked at Gary's lifeless body, and was disappointed that he couldn't get more information about the black fog and the evil from him. If he was the final boss, Mag still felt that something was missing. Mag scanned through the mission column in his brain. The mission process for eradicating the black fog was still 0. This meant that Gary's death didn't bring any advancement for the Black Fog's mission. In another word, he simply wasn't the source of the Black Fog. Gary's death brought upon a shadow of terror on everyone, and plunged them into an eerie silence. Ferdinand went up, and said with pain, the Kingslayer is already dead, and this would console my father, Chief Isaiah, and many of our people who suffered and died in the rebellion. Daryl came up, and loudly exclaimed, Gary shamelessly killed his chief and wreaked havoc on the tribe. We are all willing to serve young Master Ferdinand as our chief. Kurt also rushed up, and loudly exclaimed, we are all willing to serve young Master Ferdinand as our chief. Young Master Ferdinand is Chief Isaiah's only son, so he already is the heir apparent of the chief. We are all willing to serve you as our chief. Basil said with a bow. All the Fog tribe's people knelt down, and loudly exclaimed, we are all willing to serve you as our chief. All the orcs were looking at Ferdinand with glowing eyes, as if they had picked a wise leader for themselves. The ambience was full of extreme excitement. Gary's era was snuffed out as soon as it began, and Ferdinand's era was about to begin. Old chief, I didn't let you down. Young master will become the chief after you and continue to lead the Fog tribe forward, Durward muttered as he wiped his tears off. Oster got up, and lamented, I didn't expect I would be witnessing a moment like this. Chief Isaiah and I could be considered as old friends. It warms my heart to see that his son could take over his position. Since everything is ready, why not confer young Master Ferdinand right now? The evil presence on him is growing rapidly, as if it has just absorbed the fearful emotions from the people present. Irina's solemn voice appeared in Mag's ear. Growing stronger by absorbing the fearful emotions? Mag was also looking at Ferdinand with a grave expression. Judging from this, he was the mission's actual target and the real master of the Black Fog. I am still young and not powerful enough. How could I be the chief of the Fog tribe? Please elect another of my capable and powerful tribesmen as the chief to lead us so we won't let the tribe's awe and name down, Ferdinand humbly replied. His eyes met Oster's briefly, and both their lips curled at the same time. You are indeed not fit to be the chief. Otherwise, fathers, mothers, and grandmother's soul can never rest in peace. Right at that time, a cold voice sounded. A petite figure walked out from the crowd as she removed the black cloak she was wearing. Chapter 1567 You must be disappointed that I didn't die, right? Her petite figure, wavy hair, and pinkish-white animal ears were perky under the glow of the firelight. That adorable face was grave as she glared at Ferdinand. Connie's sudden appearance had indeed shocked many orcs. After all, there were rumors since the very beginning that Princess Connie and Chief Isaiah had died together in the rebellion. But she was now standing here alive, and saying all these unexpected words to young Master Ferdinand. One had to know that young Master Ferdinand had just converted many of Gary's trusted subordinates and rebels, killed Gary, escaped from the gallows, and was about to be conferred as the new chief. Connie! You are still alive! Ferdinand was also stunned to see Connie. He soon ecstatically said, "This is great! I was so afraid that I would be the only one left in this world. It's great that you are still alive." That sincere smile and loving gaze showed the concern that an older brother had for a sister. It was so touching. Yes. Princess Connie was the beloved daughter of the Falk tribe, and was deeply favored by Chief Isaiah. Young Master Ferdinand also doted on her. Perhaps what happened recently was a huge blow to her, so that was why she had changed. This lass. Oster looked at Connie with narrowed eyes. There was a hint of suspicion and danger in them. Meanwhile, the other chiefs and representatives all chose to keep quiet and watch the situation unfold. Seems like Connie has also discovered something. Mag pondered as he looked at the back of Connie, who was clenching her fists tightly. She only chose to hide in the crowd and appear now, so she had to have known that all this was going to happen. I didn't expect she could change her appearance and hide so well. I thought it was an old lady. Camilla's resigned voice came through the headset. The little one has even fooled me too. Her talent is indeed very good, Rex muttered to himself with consolation in the distant crowd. However, he was beginning to look at Ferdinand with a doubtful gaze. He sensed a familiar presence in him that unsettled him, but he couldn't recall what it was. Ferdinand, do you not feel ashamed when you utter those words? Connie looked at Ferdinand and pursed her lips. You must be disappointed that I didn't die, right? The square was in complete silence. Everyone that was standing in between Connie and Ferdinand backed off. All the orcs were looking at Connie and Ferdinand restlessly. They didn't understand why the ambience between the siblings, who met after such an ordeal, was so weird. The smile on Ferdinand's face froze gradually. However, he quickly changed to a heartache-filled expression as he told Connie, "It's all my fault. I didn't protect you. If Father and they knew, they wouldn't forgive me. Don't worry, Connie. From today on, Big Brother will protect you, and no one will be able to hurt you again." All the orcs heaved a breath of relief. Young Master Ferdinand was indeed a very gentle and responsible man. He treated his sisters so gently and kindly, so he would definitely treat his people like Chief Isaiah. Stop pretending to be kind. I have read all about it in Grandma's diary. Connie took out a thick parchment book and a bloody strip of cloth from a cloth bag at her waist. She lifted them high over her head as she pointed a fair finger at Ferdinand with reddened eyes, and said, "You are no longer my big brother, Ferdinand. You have been bewitched by the devil and given your soul to the terrible and evil presence. It's you who had bewitched Gary and made him rebel and kill everyone in the palace. It's you who had bewitched Basil and made him kill Gary. All this is your conspiracy. You used Gary's hands to kill Father and Grandma who had seen through your conspiracy. You killed my mother and everyone who knew you. You must be disappointed that I didn't die, right? Ferdinand, you're not fit to be the chief of the Falk tribe. You will cause the Falk tribe to be bewitched by the devil just like the Erba tribe years ago. It will descend into a crazy cannibalism and eventually destroy everything. I cannot. I absolutely cannot watch you destroy everything that father had spent his life defending. The scene was in complete silence. The orcs looked at the parchment book and the bloody cloth that Connie was holding high above her head with shocked and confused expressions. Was everything that Princess Connie said real? The Urba tribe, the chief of the Blue Sky tribe, Billy, suddenly stood up and stared at Connie in disbelief. He had a close friend who was one of the Urba tribe's 10th-tier powerhouses then. Billy even rushed to the Urba tribe personally on that day. He would still have flashbacks about the immensely horrific scene now. He couldn't imagine what could have happened on that day to cause such a horrific scene. He almost didn't see a complete corpse. The terrible wounds looked as if they were torn apart by some wild beasts. No one in the entire tribe was left alive. What was even more terrifying was the facial expressions on those corpses. They all had a scary twisted smile on their faces. There was no fear, they were laughing instead. This incident shocked the orc species. The scary crime scene even triggered a huge panic. Later, news got out that it was the hairless monk who massacred the Urba tribe for revenge. Much evidence was dug out, and this incident was eventually concluded. However, as a person who had been to the crime scene and saw those bodies personally, Billy always had serious reservations about this conclusion. A lot of doubts still couldn't be explained even after the hairless monk was captured. However, right now, Connie was saying that the Urba tribe wasn't massacred by the hairless monk. The horrible cannibalism happened because the tribe was bewitched by the evil god and devil. Those bitten marks, scattered limbs, and scary expressions were caused by them. Billy's gaze landed on Gary's body on the platform. Yes. They were glaring like that with a weird smile. Billy felt as if his heart was suddenly grasped by someone, and his breathing began to hasten. If all this was real, did that mean that the devil really existed? Debbie, Rex saw the diary that Connie was holding above her head. He suddenly clenched his fists as he realized why the presence around Ferdinand felt familiar. The memory that he had deliberately buried suddenly surged up. On that terrible night, the thick black fog in the sky over the Urba tribe had this presence which made people go crazy. So, that was it. Mag's train of thoughts became instantly clear too. He couldn't help feeling sorry for Connie when he looked upon her petite back. This entire day and night that they lost contact had to have been extremely tormenting for her. It seems like you have been frightened out of your mind. Ferdinand's expression didn't show any hint of guilt because of Connie's accusation. Instead, he ordered the orc next to him with heartache and self-rapprochement, "Bring Connie away first. Take good care of her. I will bring the best doctor to treat her later." This, the orcs from the all tribes who had seen the scene at the Urba tribe themselves revealed thoughtful expressions. They would never forget that scene for the rest of their lives. It indeed didn't look like the scene of a normal massacre. Even a massacre wouldn't be so terrifying. Father said before that the Urba tribe couldn't have been massacred by the hairless monk alone. Perhaps it is indeed as that little maiden said, they were bewitched by the devil. Habang asked softly with surprise. "We cannot decide. Let's ask father after we get back." Haga suddenly took out a photo stone, and recorded Gary's body on the platform for a moment before focusing on Ferdinand. Did this chap really make a deal with the devil? The thing that he wanted to give me, could it be? Oster also narrowed his eyes at Ferdinand, and sunk deep in thought. "Allow me to escort Princess Connie back to the palace for her rest." Kurt immediately walked toward Connie as he was desperate to prove his allegiance to his new chief. The crowd around them took a few steps back instinctively, as if they were trying to keep their distance from Connie. Connie unfurled the bloody letter in her hands, and looked at Ferdinand furiously. "Ferdinand, are you feeling guilty? This is the bloody letter that I have found in Grandma's room. She wanted me to stay away from you and the tribe. She had already foreseen the future of the Fok tribe. She knew I couldn't stop all this, so she wanted me to escape from here and from you." The blood had already turned brown, but from that messy handwriting, they could see how fearful the person was when she had written that bloody letter. If this really came from Madame Debbie, what would that imply? Princess Connie, let me bring you back to your chamber to rest. You must be exhausted. Kurt walked to Connie smilingly, and extended his hand toward her. Take back your filthy hand, bastard! An angry roar thundered. Kurt paled instantly, and put his arms across his body instinctively. A giant shoe appeared right in front of his face. It stomped on the hand blocking in front of his face, and kicked his face. Kit's face distorted instantly, and he was stomped into the ground with a fearful expression. Bam! Gravel flew around, and a giant crater appeared in the ground. Kit's two legs were stuck high in the air as they twitched unnaturally. A tall and strapping orc with short hair appeared in front of Connie. He was stepping on Kit's head with one foot with a fearsome facial expression. What? All of the orcs were staring at Kurt, who was stomped into the ground with shock. Lord Kurt was the 10th tier powerhouse of the Fok tribe, and yet he was stomped into the ground so easily. What was that fellow? The hairless monk! Daryl exclaimed as he stared at the orc who suddenly appeared. They just had an altercation yesterday, so of course he could recognize who he was. With fear and fury, he said to Rex, "You came to young Master Ferdinand last night, and now the young master is already here. Why are you still hurting Kurt then?" Hairless monk! All the orcs broke into a commotion upon hearing that. The orcs who were standing close to them immediately backed dozens of meters away from them as they stared at that short-haired orc who had his foot on Kurt. The notoriety of the hairless monk had only increased in the past 100 years. He was still the #1 bad guy of the Twilight Forest, an existence who could stop the children crying with his name alone. When the entire Urba tribe was annihilated then, the crime scene was extremely terrifying, and the culprit was this fellow right in front of them. However, wasn't he already captured and locked up in the Basti prison in Chaos City? Why was he appearing here? And why was he attacking Kurt? Oster also stood up immediately, and yelled, "Rex! I didn't expect you would dare to appear in the Twilight Forest again." All the chiefs also stood up, and looked at Rex warily with nervous expressions. "I am her master, so tell me, why am I stepping on him?" Rex turned his gaze to Ferdinand, and solemnly said, "Debbie was right. The evil presence on you is no different from the black fog that was consolidating in the sky above the Urba tribe that day. It came from the devil, and it was going to welcome the arrival of the devil. It would bring a devastating catastrophe to the tribe. The Urba tribe is your example. Connie came back to save you, but you have already sold your soul to the devil. You killed your father to ascend to the throne. You forced Debbie to her death. A fellow like you should be executed. Was that really the devil who was exercising his evil influence?" Billy looked at Rex. He had always wanted to kill Rex for the past 100 years to avenge his good friend, but now he couldn't help wondering if it had been correct to pin the crime on Rex. Ferdinand looked at Rex, and a hint of panic flashed through his eyes. He took 2 steps back instinctively, but he soon stopped himself and regained his composure. With a pained expression, he said, "Connie, why are you taking someone who is a sinner to be your master? No wonder you would say those words earlier. I don't blame you. You must have been brainwashed by the hairless monk. If the devil really exists in this world, he must be the most terrifying one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have annihilated the Urba tribe. He even split open the stomach of a newborn child. Yes. How dare a devil accuse the young master?" Princess Connie actually addressed the hairless monk as her master. This is an insult to the tribe. The orcs from the Fok tribe began to chime in with acknowledgement. They were looking at Rex with a hateful and fearful gaze. They were also looking at Connie with a disgusted gaze. Almost everyone was taking Ferdinand's side. The doubtful voice had almost completely disappeared. "All the chiefs and powerhouses present here, I, Ferdinand, on behalf of the Fok tribe, humbly ask all of you to subdue this evil hairless monk and prevent a disaster for the Fok tribe after our power was severely impaired. We don't want a repeat of the Urba tribe's tragedy. We, the Fok tribe, will always remember your kindness. Ferdinand loudly declared to all the chiefs and representatives with a sincere look. All the chiefs had a hesitant expression upon hearing that. This matter had nothing to do with them. However, since Rex the hairless monk had appeared, the entire orc species could no longer stay out of it. Compared to the speech that Rex made to exonerate himself, Ferdinand's request and explanation were obviously much more convincing. We, the Totala tribe, will support the Fok tribe. We, the Dino tribe, will support the Fok tribe. We, the Nam tribe, will support the Fok tribe. The powerhouses from all the tribes began to come forward, and loudly declared their support. Ferdinand curled his lips slightly. Even if the hairless monk was very powerful, could he really take on 10 of them? However, Ferdinand still maintained a righteous expression, as if he was willing to sacrifice himself for his tribe anytime. Master! Why don't they believe us? Connie asked as she looked at Rex's strong back. Tears already flowed down her reddened eyes uncontrollably. This is the reason why I wasn't willing to explain back then. So many years have passed, and this batch of orcs is even worse than the batch of orcs then. Rex smiled. There was a hint of resignation in his smile. Chapter 1569 Holy Light, let evil have nowhere to hide. These baddies are bullying Big Sister Connie together. I want to send them flying to the sky. Amy angrily said as she began to take out her fire lotus bombs. Prepare for action. The first objective is to bring Connie away safely. The second objective is to capture Ferdinand, Mag gravely said as he pressed on the long sword that he hid under his robes. What happened today had been too dramatic, and completely went beyond all the plans he had previously made. However, things were getting clearer now. There had to be a connection between Ferdinand and the Black Fog. If he wanted to eradicate the Black Fog, a fight with him was inevitable. However, Ferdinand had used his powerful empathic skills, and successfully made the majority of the people join the ranks of exterminating the devil by using the prejudice and fear the orcs had for Rex. You are saying that the hairless monk represents evil and all he said are lies. Then, what about me? Right at this time, a sarcastic voice appeared above the square. A champagne light flashed and Irina appeared, hovering in midair above the square. Irina, someone exclaimed as everybody stared at Irina, who was wearing a white dress, shrouded in champagne light. Irina's legends had never stopped during this whole time, regardless whether it was battling a few powerhouses with Alex in Rodu, slaughtering the spatial demon patriarch, founding the night elves, killing Borg, or bringing the elven slaves out of the wind forest in a shocking manner. However, what was she doing in the Fok tribe? What was the meaning of her words? Ferdinand was also looking at Irina with shock, but he soon said, Princess Irina, the Fok tribe has always been friendly with the wind forest. May I know what is the purpose of your trip here today? All the orcs from the different tribes halted and looked at Irina too. This woman was the one woman that nobody could trifle with in this world, even the wind forest was split up by her. Don't even mention that Alex, who could kill the spatial demon patriarch with one strike, was standing behind her. I came to eradicate evil. The God of Light and God of Life have bestowed upon me power and responsibility that allows me to identify and cleanse all evil presence. Irina looked at Ferdinand with a holy expression, and coldly said, I have discovered evil on your body. That is a power and presence that doesn't belong to this world. I suspect you have made a deal with the devil and sold your soul. How is that possible? She is spouting nonsense, right? How could young Master Ferdinand have sold his soul to the devil? But Irina represents the God of Light and the God of Life. She must be very sensitive to evil. What she could see may really exist. The square broke out into commotion. Compared to Rex, who was believed to be a scary evil presence, Irina's words were more believable and difficult to refute straight away. Undeniably, when Alex and Irina were traveling on the continent, they had left behind many legends of upholding virtue and condemning evil, and were deemed the embodiment of justice. Her sudden appearance in the Fok tribe and accusation of Ferdinand selling his soul to the devil was really befuddling to the Fok tribe's orcs. "Princess Irina, please mind your words. Although my power is negligible, and the Fok tribe has waned after going through many catastrophes, I am still the son of Isaiah and the young master of the Fok tribe," Ferdinand said to Irina righteously. "I will never agree to your unreasonable accusations and pushing the blame onto me like this. The Fok tribe and the Orc species will never agree, either. The Fok tribe is going through a catastrophe today. I have already lost my most important loved ones. The tribe has already lost their best chief. The pride of the Fok tribe will not be trampled on by your people again." The Fok tribe's orcs got agitated immediately, and shouted and yelled in support of Ferdinand. The other tribe's orcs were also looking at Irina judgmentally. Her appearance was too much of a coincidence. It was still explainable if she said Gary had sold his soul to the devil. How could the victim, Ferdinand, be the devil? Your glib tongue is not going to change anything. Irina looked at Ferdinand as she raised the magic caster's staff in her hands. The golden light began to converge as she smiled. "We simply need a beam of holy light to find out whether you have sold your soul to the devil. All evil has nowhere to hide in front of the holy light. Irina, this is us orcs matter. Aren't you being a busybody here?" Oster came over with a sinister expression, and said to Irina, "Who are you to decide about our orc species matters? You have already made the wind forest a mess, so are you trying to make the twilight forest a mess now too? It wouldn't just be you orcs matter alone if he has sold his soul to the devil. This is a matter that threatens the survival of the entire Norland continent, so why can't I be involved?" Irina replied to Oster coldly. "Today's matter isn't up to you. The Fok tribe has already had many catastrophes, and we won't allow you to cause trouble and hurt the innocents. I, Oster, and the Og tribe will not allow this," Oster said forcefully with a dark face. "You still talk as much nonsense now as you did then." Rex disappeared from where he was standing. Accompanied by a sonic boom, a giant fist as big as a sandbag had already appeared in front of Oster. Oster's reaction was also very fast. He punched toward Rex's fist at the same time as he rapidly backed off. Bam! A dull thud sounded, and a powerful force formed an energy ripple as it exploded in midair. The people around it were blown away, and the ground sank 50 centimeters deep right away. Oster was forced dozens of meters back. His legs left deep trenches on the ground before he could stop himself. And Rex already appeared in front of him again. The sonic booms continued. Their figures had already become two faint shadows. Everyone could only hear the dull thuds when the fists landed on their bodies. The sudden battle between Rex and Oster made the sounds of opposition disappear immediately. Irina's magic caster's staff already had the golden holy light lit up. Finally, panic appeared on Ferdinand's face as he ordered, "Irina is trying to kill me and subvert the Fok tribe. Stop her! Protect young Master Ferdinand!" Daryl shouted. He swung his magic caster's staff, and ice barriers appeared above Ferdinand's head. Meanwhile, Basil dashed toward Irina with his iron rod. "Holy light, let evil have nowhere to hide!" Irina chanted loudly as she pointed her staff at Ferdinand. A bright beam of golden holy light pierced through the ice barriers, and landed on Ferdinand, who had a terrified expression. Chapter 1570 The God of Light will cleanse his soul and body completely. This was the world's holiest light, even the orcs had to admit that. Light magic casters were extremely rare, and those who could master the holy light technique were even rarer. They all had the God of Light's favor. That God that was the sworn enemy of evil in the legends represented justice and light. The holy light represented brightness. It could cleanse a person's soul and remove evil. It wasn't very aggressive toward normal people, but to evil, it was like a sharp sword. The majority of the Folk tribe's orcs still trusted Ferdinand. Since the holy light had already descended, it could naturally prove his innocence. Then, Irina had to apologize for what she did. Connie stared at Ferdinand with reddened eyes as she tightly clenched her fists. Her body was trembling too. Mag threw a glance at Irina, who was hovering in midair. He placed Amy in Elizabeth's care, and then left with the excuse of finding an evacuation route. Rex and Oster, who were locked in a battle, punched at each other before taking dozens of steps back together at the time. They stopped fighting with tacit understanding, and looked at Ferdinand together. The pure golden holy light that gave out dazzling beams landed on Ferdinand. No. Ferdinand's expression twisted instantly. The hidden black fog could no longer hide. It slithered out from his body like black snakes, and twisted into scary faces in the holy light before it disintegrated. Chi-chi-ga-ga, devilish screams emerged from those shattered ghost faces, and shocked the people to their core. What are those? How could the holy light have made these come out? Why are such terrifying things found on young Master Ferdinand? Oh my heavens! Did young Master Ferdinand really trade his soul to the devil? The orcs surrounding Ferdinand backed away from him in a panic as they watched Ferdinand, who grimaced in the holy light, with shock. In the pure holy light, Ferdinand's crazy twisted expression terrified people, and the ghost faces that the weird black fog consolidated into even made people associate them with the scary devil. Everyone suddenly realized what Irina said could be true. The holy light was already enough to prove all this. How could that happen? All the chiefs and representatives were also shocked to see that. The devil only existed in the legends, but what they were seeing now couldn't be refuted. If the devil was proved to have really existed, and had exchanged its soul with Ferdinand and bewitched Gary to kill his king, then what Connie said earlier about the Urba tribe's mishap could have indeed been caused by the devil, and the whole tribe ended cannibalizing one another? Princess Irina is right. The black fog on him is indeed suspicious. It reeks of the scent of evil, and it is similar to Gary's behavior earlier. Billy pointed his finger at Basil, who was dashing forward. Countless vines rapidly grew out from the ground, formed a wall in the blink of an eye, and blocked his way. Basil attempted to dash over, but was bound by the vines that suddenly entwined him. Ferdinand looked up gradually. There was a rim of red light around his completely black eyes. He laughed as he said to Irina, "Why, you cannot kill me. I am the god of darkness, and I am all around you. You are simply a remnant thought that is hiding in the body of a coward. Do you really believe you are the evil god?" Irina pursed her lips with disdain. She lifted her magic caster's staff up again, and chanted, "God of light, please bestow your power upon me, and with the power of holy light, cleanse this world of all evil and darkness." Another brighter and bigger beam of holy light crashed down. Ah! Ferdinand tilted his head back and let out a shrill scream. The black fog melted away quickly in the holy light. Much of it disappeared even before it could form ghost faces. Ferdinand's face became paler and paler. It even felt like it was going to become transparent. The red rim at the exterior of the eyes slowly retreated, and his eyes turned black again. His eyes met Connie's as he weakly said, "Connie, I've never thought of killing you. Never did. Please help me, but you've killed everyone that I treasure, including you." Connie sobbed with reddened eyes. "If there is an afterlife, please let her off then," Amy chimed in loudly. Pfft! Ferdinand spat out a mouthful of black blood, and his expression descended into chaos and madness again. Was the old chief's death and that rebellion really planned by Ferdinand? It's so scary. The old chief was so nice to him, and even groomed him to be the next chief. Why did he do that? Watching the scene, all the orcs could already basically judge the situation now. The connection between Ferdinand and the devil had been proven with Ferdinand thrashing around on the ground in the holy light. Ferdinand suddenly opened his eyes, and stared at Connie with black eyes as he hysterically said, "I am going to kill you. You're the bastard of that B*tch. You all killed my mother. It's you all who caused me to have never met her. All of you deserve to die. When did he ever use his mercy on my mother? I am going to kill all of you to console her soul. She said she had a horrible death, your mother died during childbirth. She insisted on saving you, and entrusted you to my mother. She begged her to treat you like her own son. You should know very well how mother had treated you all these years. If she had really caused your mother's death, why would she have treated you so well? She even treated you better than me, Connie said to Ferdinand as she hugged the diary tightly. All these things were recorded in Grandma's diary, but you had believed the devil's bewitchment, and killed all your loved ones. No. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that, Ferdinand grasped his hair and yelled in pain. He fell to his knees, and let out an angry howl at the sky. Irina was watching this coldly. Suddenly, she cocked an eyebrow in hesitation. She kept her magic caster's staff and pointed at Ferdinand as she shouted, Ferdinand's soul is already completely corroded by the devil. He has become the devil's most loyal servant. To prevent him from harming this world again, the God of Light will cleanse his soul and body completely. As soon as she said that, the holy light on Ferdinand suddenly burst out. The glaring light made it impossible for anyone to see anything within the holy light. Approximately 3 seconds later, the holy light slowly dissipated. And there was only a piece of tattered clothing left in the center of the stage, which was the one that Ferdinand was wearing. The holy light had proved Irina's words to be right. Ferdinand had sold his soul to the devil, and was now exterminated by the holy light. There was no more point in fighting. Perhaps they should even thank Irina. If it weren't for her, they might have had to face the rule of a devil, and no one would know if the Fok tribe would end up becoming the next Urba tribe. Now that the Fok tribe was without a leader, how should they move on from here? The chiefs and representatives from the other tribes all had different expressions when they saw this scene. The devil had controlled Ferdinand, proving its existence to be true, and it might very possibly be the cause of the Urba tribe to kill among themselves. Would something similar happen in the Twilight Forest again? The Fok tribe, which had lost another 10th tier powerhouse and the heir to the chief, suffered great losses in this turmoil, and its might had decreased drastically. There were only 3 not very strong 10th tier orcs left, and that would not be enough for them to have a strong foothold as one of the top 10 orc tribes. The Twilight Forest would be greatly affected by what happened tonight. Ding! The black fog has been cleared. The source of the black fog has been completely removed. Congratulations on completing your mission. Mission reward, 1 face-altering mask set. The system's joyous voice rang in Mag's head. He raised his brow a little and walked out of the crowd, back to Amy's side. He smilingly said, looks like we don't have to retreat anymore. Brother, Connie looked at the remnants of the torn shirt, and bit on her lips hard, trying to suppress her emotions as her tears fell. That small figure appeared even more lonely and frail amongst the crowd. Everyone watched her with empathy. She was probably the most unlucky one to survive in this rebellion. Gary the Kingslayer is dead. Ferdinand, the devil who planned all this, was also exterminated. Now, the only one who has the right to inherit the position of chief in the Fok tribe is this little princess. Irina's gaze landed on Connie. At the same time, a gentle ray of light landed on the latter. The orcs in the Fok tribe all looked at Connie, who was standing under that ray of light, and their eyes slowly lit up. Princess Connie is the chief's beloved princess. And she is also his only heir now. It's only right for her to inherit his place as chief. Durward shouted loudly with his magic caster's staff held high in the air as he walked out from the crowd. An old man walked out as well, and proclaimed, I concur. Princess Connie is kind and brave. She exposed the devil's lies and trap. She would definitely be able to bring the Fok tribe out of this difficult situation. The other orcs nodded in agreement. Connie's actions today changed their perception they had of her. She was no longer an innocent princess. This experience was an ordeal to her, no doubt, and being able to survive this meant that she might really be able to lead the Fok tribe to become even stronger. Princess Connie, please go on stage to be conferred as chief. Princess Connie, please go up on stage. Everyone started paving a way for Connie as they shouted loudly. When Connie heard the shouts, she was bewildered and lost. She instinctively looked around the crowd, and her gaze finally stopped on Mag. Go, and protect what your father had been protecting all his life, Mag told her loudly. Protect? Connie looked as though she was trying to grab hold of something. As she looked around and saw those trusting eyes, she felt as though she could see that dignified man and that amiable old lady. She took a deep breath, and walked towards the elevated platform. Connie walked up the elevated platform and looked at everyone. She said in a low voice, I am Connie. Perhaps I don't have the right to stand here. Maybe I am not good enough to be the chief of the Fok tribe. But all I want to say is, I hope that I can continue protecting this piece of land and this tribe for father. The orcs looked at Connie, and wiped away their tears silently. Their tribe should have been a peaceful and strong tribe if all these things had not happened. It's your turn, Ugly Duckling. Mag pulled off the black cloth which was on Ugly Duckling, and patted its bottom gently. A grilled fish just for you. Meow. Ugly Duckling's eyes lit up. It jumped down from Amy's embrace to the ground, and dashed through the crowd like a bolt of orange lightning, racing towards the elevated platform. Lights, get ready. Levitation, get ready. Mag said softly. Meow. Just when everyone was still deeply entrenched in their sorrow, they heard a loud and sharp sound. An orange figure suddenly dashed upstage, and stopped in front of Connie. It was an orange cat. However, it had a pair of translucent white wings on its back, allowing it to levitate in midair in front of Connie. It gave off a holy light, and looked as though it descended from heaven. Lord Flurkin! It really is Lord Flurkin! The orcs from the Fok tribe were all stunned when they saw the flying orange cat. After that, their faces suddenly lit up with a bright smile. They all dropped to their knees on the ground, and many even started kowtowing. This is really Flurkin. The orcs from the other tribes all looked at that levitating orange cat, and all the Fok tribe orcs who had kneeled on the ground. They hesitated for a while before lowering their heads with respect. Every tribe had their own magical beast which they would pray to, but there were very few instances where these magical beasts would actually appear. No one would think that Flurkin would appear after the Fok tribe had gone through such an ordeal. Ugly Connie blurted out as she stared blankly at the levitating orange cat. Meow. But before she could even speak, Ugly Duckling reached its paw out to cover her mouth. At the same time, it put another paw on the top of her head. The glow on it grew even brighter, as though there was some sort of passing down of legacy going on. When everyone saw that, their eyes widened. They might be witnessing a very important scene. About 10 seconds later, Ugly Duckling retracted the paw on Connie's head, and a golden crown appeared in its place. Meow. Ugly Duckling meowed once again before disappearing. When the glow was completely gone, there was only Connie left, with a glittering golden crown on her head. Lord Flurkin has chosen Princess Connie. Lord Flurkin has acknowledged Princess Connie as the one to lead the Fok tribe. Chief Connie! Chief Connie! The orcs all rose and started to cheer for Connie. Boss! Your plan was really impressive, Yabimiya exclaimed as she looked at Mag. Elizabeth also took a second glance at Mag. After this, all of the problems that Connie might have faced after her succession were all solved. No one would dare to defy Flurkin's will, and no one would dare to question if a female could become the chief again. The chiefs and representatives of the other tribes hesitated for a while before going back to their seats. This conferring ceremony that had received the acknowledgement of Flurkin might be able to pull the Fok tribe back from falling off the edge of glory. No one knew what Flurkin bestowed upon this young female chief of the Fok tribe, and the Fok tribe might grow to be even bigger in the future. From today onwards, I, Rex the Hairless Monk, shall stay in the Fok tribe as a protector until Connie grows up to become a chief that is powerful enough. Rex appeared behind Connie and gave Oster a warning glance. Humph, I hope the Fok tribe can walk out of its misery as soon as possible. Oster snorted coldly before leaving gloomily with the people of the Og tribe. Some of the chiefs and representatives who were the Og tribe's loyal followers stood up, and followed him quickly. Master! Connie turned around to look at Rex as tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. You don't have to worry. I am here. Rex looked at Connie and squeezed out a smile on his stiff face. Does that mean that the hairless monk is joining the Fok tribe? He is someone on par with Oster. After losing Isaiah and Gary, we gained the hairless monk. Though our might has decreased by a lot, we are still the second strongest tribe in the Twilight Forest. When the other chiefs and representatives saw this scene, they all had different thoughts and expressions. The hairless monk's crime of wiping out the Urba tribe was finally cleared today, and the existence of the devil was just like a sword hanging above everyone's head. After a few centuries, the same thing happened. Was this a coincidence? No one knew where it would appear next. Basil was imprisoned, and before anyone could be certain that he already regained his consciousness, his movements would be restricted. Daryl and Kurt could tell very clearly that the situation had changed, so they had all chosen to pledge their loyalty to Connie. Connie's conferring ceremony was not too elaborate. She cancelled all the celebratory events that Gary had planned after the ceremony, and ended it by thanking the guests and tribesmen. After going through so much tonight, everyone needed rest, including her. The guests from the various tribes started to take their leave, and so did Irina. No one would have thought that Gary did not become chief, likewise for Ferdinand. In the end, it was Connie who was conferred as the new chief of the Fok tribe. This would definitely have a big impact on the Twilight Forest, and even the Norland continent. Get Mr. Mag and his people from the main kitchen to see me, Connie ordered an official near her before entering the palace. Let's go. We can see the new chief in a new place now. Mag held Amy's little hand, and walked against the crowd towards the palace. Irina changed and appeared by the group's side. She nodded slightly at Mag. Mag lifted a brow in acknowledgement with a smile, and said, "The lights were done very perfectly. Don't you think it's a waste of talent to make a 10th tier light-type magic caster to do something like this?" Irina smiled seemingly at Mag. That ray of light created an effect that even 10th tier magic casters would never be able to achieve. Only the most professional light-type magic caster could do it, Mag said matter-of-factly. That didn't sound bad. Irina nodded. Mag heaved a sigh of relief. It was indeed difficult to look for a light technician this professional. There's also Babla's spatial magic. It's very impressive. She made Ugly Duckling levitate in the air, Yabimiya praised. Ahem. Babla appeared rather proud. She cleared her throat, and said, "It was just a wave of my hands." It was the standard that even a 4th tier spatial magic caster could achieve. It indeed was just a wave of your hands, Mag said with a nod. Babla froze. She lifted a brow and snorted angrily. Mag and the rest were brought into the palace quickly following the orders of the new chief. Compared to last night when they snuck in, they walked in openly through the main door today, and were even greeted well. "The chief is inside. She has invited all of you in." A guard opened the door to a hall for Mag and the rest with a smile. The door closed behind them slowly after they walked in. "Boss, everyone," Connie turned around. She looked at everyone with reddened eyes. Although tears had started welling up in her eyes, she still bit her lips to control her tears. "It's all right. It will all pass." Mag went up, and gave her a consoling pat on the shoulder. "That's right. Connie, you're now the new chief of the Fok tribe. If your father and grandmother saw that you've continued protecting the tribe, and even lead it to even greater heights, they will surely be very happy," Yabimiya said softly as she went up to hold Connie's hand. "I'm afraid I won't be able to do it well," Connie said worriedly with no confidence. Since you have the courage to go up there, you should trust that you can do it, Mag said with a smile as he shook his head. The first female chief of the Fok tribe and the strongest female chief of the Twilight Forest in the future. Bablau looked at Connie and stroked her chin ponderingly. The first queen of the Moon Nation, should I give it a try? Don't you still have an older brother? Camilla reminded. Bablau thought for a while, and said, he will then be in my way. After everyone took turns to console and encourage her, Connie started to relax. However, Ferdinand's matter was still a huge blow to her. It would probably take her a very long time to put it behind her. You should get some rest. Irina walked over and tapped at Connie's glabella gently. A green light glowed, and Connie fell unconscious in Irina's embrace. I reckon she hadn't slept since last night, Irina explained to everyone as she placed Connie gently on a bench. Is this the diary of big sister Connie's grandmother? Amy asked as she pointed to a thick sheepskin notebook at the side. Chapter 1573 Alex, right. Rex only has bronze, no brains. He's not a threat at all. As for that lass, she's even less of a worry. However, if word of Flurkin appearing spread, she would gain some prominence, and that would affect our plan to subdue the other tribes. Oster frowned. He thought for a while, and said, let's still go according to our original plan. Just spread the word that this lass is brash, and cannot take up the responsibility of the chief of the Fok tribe. After that, get close to Daryl and Kurt, give them a little something, and tell them to start another rebellion. Yes, the golden-armored orc answered. Gary's death and Connie's succession were major events to the Fok tribe, but Flurkin's appearance minimized the negative impact they had. Everyone believed that Lord Flurkin had made the wisest and noblest choice for the Fok tribe. As Isaiah's daughter, Connie would become the new chief of the Fok tribe, and continue to protect Tottery. Of course, there were still voices of objection. However, most of them chose to keep their mouths shut in front of the hairless monk. Those oppressed and maligned orcs who were locked up were set free, and Gary's accomplices were put in jail. Many things happened in the night, and everyone knew that when day broke, Connie's era would officially begin. So, the mission that the organization gave me is completed just like that. Hannah walked back to her small courtyard slowly. She was still in disbelief. Everything was set into place before her wine had the chance to be put into use, and before she could use the other things that she had prepared. But what exactly was the mission that the organization gave him this time? To rescue Ferdinand? Then if Ferdinand is dead, is his mission considered complete? Hannah stopped in her tracks. She was a little confused. Then can I leave this time? Grandpa said that I can leave as long as I complete the organization's mission. After waiting for so long, it isn't all a lie, right? In the rundown room, Rex stood quietly amidst the floor of shattered ceramics. He could even spot a few familiar pieces. Now that the person was gone, he could only use these things as a form of remembrance. I thought that as long as I left, you would be able to forget the events of that night. Slowly, Rex sighed. He fell silent for a very long time. Don't worry, I will watch over Connie for you. This time, I'm not leaving. The low voice echoed around the room. It sounded like a mumble, and also like some sort of promise. Footsteps approached, and two figures appeared at the door. Rex slowly turned around and saw Irina and Mag, who had a mask on, at the door. He did not seem very surprised by their arrival. I want to understand more about the devil and evil gods from you, Mag said in a different tone. He reached his hand out to remove his black and white mask at the same time. Under the mask was a chiseled face filled with righteousness. There were a pair of thick eyebrows and big eyes, with a scar at the corner of his eyebrow. Alex, right? Rex looked at Mag. There was finally a slight change on his face. I am. Mag nodded slightly. It's obvious that you've already understood some things, and could see where the problem of Ferdinand's issue lies. Yes. A few months ago, the same thing happened first to Borg, an elf. It was way more serious than what happened to Ferdinand. We realized that the holy light had a restrictive effect on the black fog. After that, it happened to Alfred, an abyss demon. The black fog appeared on a small island in the boundless sea realm. All the animals there were hysterical because of the black fog. We saw them eating and tearing each other apart, so we knew the possible effect of the black fog on normal living things, Mag said calmly. After that, it was Ferdinand and Gary. Their condition was very mild. There have already been 3 cases of the black fog within just a few months. Rex raised his voice a little when he heard that. Yes. Mag nodded. We're worried that this might be a negative signal. If the black fog starts to appear in different parts of the Norland continent, and we aren't able to get timely information to remove it, once it reaches an uncontrollable scale, it might mean destruction to the Norland continent. A tribe covered in black fog meant that the entire tribe was wiped out. If the black fog covers the entire Norland continent, that would mean that the entire continent would be on a frantic killing spree. That would be way scarier than a war between races, Rex said softly as his expression turned grave. Have you seen what's within the black fog? Irina asked Rex. Rex's eyes darted a little, and he appeared hesitant. If we want to stop all this from happening, we need to understand it more. Mag looked at Rex, and said, when I was at the boundless sea realm, I was once entranced to enter a stone statue. Inside, I saw a huge stone temple, a throne made up of skeletons, and a man whom I could not see clearly. Back then, when we've just arrived at the Urba tribe, we happened to see them in the midst of a scary ceremony. Rex told them everything that happened back then. It was an unforgettable night. Even though he had not mentioned the events of the day to anyone for a century, he could still recount the details of the scene. They started frantically killing and biting each other, pulling children's hearts out to eat. And within the black fog, we saw a horrifying thing that we could not name. It was just like a huge mountain. Even a giant dragon would be as small as a mosquito before it. Rex's voice was shaking as fear showed through his eyes. We lay low on the top of the mountain, afraid to move, all the way until day broke and the black fog dispersed, together with the unnamed thing, before we went down the mountain. Rex looked at Mag. He paused for a while, pulled out a black stone box from his pocket, and passed it to Mag. This is. Mag reached out for the stone box that was the size of his palm. It was unexpectedly heavy, and he almost dropped it. We found this at their altar. For all these years, I've never opened it, Rex said. Chapter 1574 I'll have you stay inside until the prison collapses. The effect of the face-altering mask that the system rewarded was not bad. Don't you like this face? Irina asked as she looked at the mask Mag was holding in his hand. Mag kept the mask with a smile, and said, I prefer this current face and this current identity even more. Irina looked into Mag's eyes, thought for a while, and smiled. It's great. Is everything settled for Ferdinand's things? Mag asked as he continued walking forward. I've already sealed him up into a deep slumber, and we can bring him for the trial anytime. Irina nodded slightly, and continued, should we let Connie know about this? Let's not tell her first. That fellow is evil through and through. If Connie finds out, it'll only add on to her troubles. Mag shook his head. The two carried on their discussion as they left the palace. This was the first time Mag removed his mask to reveal Alex's face in order to gain Rex's trust. Rex's identity was rather special. Although he was currently the deputy warden of Basti prison in Chaos City, he did not simply belong to Chaos City. As for the Falk tribe, he only chose to stay because of Connie and her grandmother. They had the same stance when it came to the Black Fog and the Devil. Therefore, Mag wanted to use his sincerity to make Rex stand on their side so that at least they would be fighting together when it came to dealing with matters related to the Devil. Mag could not predict what kind of battle this would become, so he would need even stronger alliances. In a cave outside of a city, Irina waved her hand to undo the seal on the cave. After that, Mag and Irina went in. Ferdinand, who was wrapped up in a burlap cloth, was curled up in a corner, deeply asleep. His face was as white as a sheet. There was a tiny cloud of black fog formed at his glabella which had yet to disperse. Based on his situation, will he be gone soon? Mag asked as he went up to check on Ferdinand. It seems like that on the surface, but his willpower is stronger than it seems, Irina said without a hint of worry. After hearing that, Mag did not bother about Ferdinand anymore. He pulled out that stone box. The stone box was a few kilograms heavy even though it was just the size of a palm, as though it contained some sort of highly compact metal. Irina waved her hand, and created several seals in the cave before looking at the stone box in Mag's hand. Let's take a look at what the Urba tribe was praying to back then. Mag placed the stone box on a rock in the cave. He took in a deep breath, and opened the cover of the box. A gush of chill air rushed out from the stone box, decreasing the temperature in the cave by a lot. However, Mag's and Irina's gaze was already glued to that statue within the stone box. It was a monster statue that would make one feel disgust and horror at first sight. It had the head of an octopus, the body of a human, and the wings of a bat. It was black throughout, but its eyes were blood red, and one could even faintly see light reflecting in it. Thulhu! Mag raised his brow. This statue felt oddly familiar. What a disgusting creature! Isn't this the unknown thing that Rex was describing just now? Irina said with a frown as she suppressed the urge to use the holy light to destroy the stone statue. It probably is. Mag nodded. Back then, the Urba tribe prayed to and believed in this evil god, resulting in the annihilation of the entire tribe. Mag already felt the change in temperature in the cave. He looked at the stone statue with a frown. It was indeed creepy, even more so than the stone statue on the island at the Boundless Sea Realm. He's awake. Irina suddenly turned her head back to look at Ferdinand, who was lying in the corner of the cave. Ferdinand had sat up silently. The black fog at his glabella started spinning around furiously like a whirlwind, and his pure black eyes had already turned blood red. His mouth was opened up into a broad smile, revealing his white teeth as he watched Mag and Irina creepily and silently. He is absorbing the energy of the stone statue. Mag glanced at the eyes of the stone statue, which was slowly getting brighter. It seemed as though it had formed some sort of connection with Ferdinand. Holy light! Irina lifted her magic caster's staff. The holy light lit up the entire cave, cutting the connection between Ferdinand and the stone statue like a sharp knife. The whirlwind at Ferdinand's glabella dispersed. His body swayed, and he fell back into unconsciousness once again. Meanwhile, Mag closed the stone box to stop the cold, evil aura from seeping out. It has been a few hundred years, but these things are still around. Looks like it's more troublesome than I expected, Mag said with a frown as he kept the stone box. Irina put her magic caster's staff down with a frown, and worriedly said, if these fellows want to control the world, and expanding their territory is what some of those dumb ones in the different races are thinking about, once a war breaks out again, the black fog will erupt together, and we might not have the ability to get the situation under control. We must let them know about this thing in the coming negotiation. The happenings in the Fok tribe spread quickly to the various parts of the continent in various forms, causing quite an uproar. Devil! I didn't think it would be such an ending. In the city lord's castle, Roland passed the top-secret letter to Michael. He was unable to hide the shock on his face. Michael was also unable to calm his heart for a very long time after reading the letter. After staying silent for quite a while, Michael put the letter down. He looked at Roland, and said, looks like we have to change our strategy. If what Mag said is true, and everyone was unable to escape, we have to gather all the powers from every race, and get ready to face whatever may come. I'm afraid it wouldn't be an easy feat to persuade those fellows. Roland frowned. But it's something we have to do, a horse-drawn carriage pulled over outside Mamie restaurant. Vivian lifted the curtain and propped her chin on her hand as she looked at the sign hanging by the door. She mumbled with melancholy, "When is Boss Mag coming back? My grilled fish is right here waiting for me." Didn't Mr. Mag get invited to the Fok tribe to cook for the chief's conferring ceremony? The ceremony ended yesterday. They will definitely be back today, Luna, who was sitting beside her, said with a smile. Forget about the grilled fish. Why is even the hot pot gone? The last time they went out, there was still hot pot, Vivian said begrudgingly. She had not had any good food for 3 days. Maybe they all left together this time, Luna guessed with a shrug. Chapter 1575. What does it make of our background as one of the 4 major families? After saying his piece, the orc turned around to go back into the shop, and slammed the door shut. These fellows, Rena clenched her fists angrily. When her finger touched the wound on her palm, she groaned in pain. Rena, are you all right? Firas, who happened to be on the way back to the dormitory, went up quickly to help Rena pat off the dust on her. She looked at the wound on Rena's palm, and angrily and worriedly said, "Did those fellows hit you?" Firas, I'm all right. I just wanted to go into the shop, but they refused to let me in and pushed me. It's just a small wound, Rena said with a smile and a shake of her head as she watched Firas blow the sand off her palm and bandage her palm up carefully. Firas furiously said, "These fellows are rogues. This shop is already yours," but they kept claiming it to be theirs, and even refused to leave. When Boss and the others come back, they'll definitely uphold justice for you. It's all right. I have the property deed. They can't get away with it. Rena shook her head. However, she still a little worriedly said, "The problem is that the renovation work for the shop is almost done, and we should already start hiring these 2 days, but we've already wasted 2 days here, and I have no time to make the soup base and go to the market. Now, all these tasks have to be put on hold." "It's all right. I think that the hot pot soup base you made yesterday was superb. Business is sure to be great if you can reach that standard with just substitute ingredients," Firas said with an encouraging smile. "It's still not good enough." Rena shook her head. She rather seriously said, "I think that there's some problem with the tripe yesterday, and we need to look for a better supplier. There's still also a lot to improve when it comes to the hot pot soup base. There are still a lot of problems unsolved. Then I'll accompany you to the market. Anyway, I don't have anything on in the afternoon. I'm worried that those fellows will find trouble with you again. At least I can protect you when I'm around," Firas said with a smile as she wrapped her arms around Rena's arm. Thank you, Firas." Rena smiled, and both of them left hand in hand. The orc who pushed Rena just now went up to the 2nd floor, and hesitated a little as he watched the young man standing by the window. "Young master, she's gone, but you didn't expect that she'd already gotten her hands on the property deed, right?" Jonah frowned as he watched the 2 young ladies walk into the distance. There was some anger in his voice. The orc went up a little, and softly said, "Do you think there's a need for us to snatch the property deed?" Jonah smiled. He turned around and looked at that orc gloomily. "You fool! Do you know how Bennett went down? Now the entire Chaos City is in jitters, and you're still dumb enough to say something like that? Besides, Bennett just went down a few days ago, and this shop already belongs to this woman. Do you think there is really no relation between her and the Grey Temple? I've investigated her. This woman comes from the slums. She has no father, and grew up with her mother. She used to be an accountant in a small shop before this. Just a while ago, she became a service staff member at Mamie Restaurant. I doubt she has any backers," the orc said hesitantly. "Idiot! Do you think the city lord's castle just chose a random person to elevate from poverty?" Jonah was shaking mad. He waved his hand, and said, "Send out a warning. Without mine or my father's orders, do not lay a hand on this woman or Mamie restaurant. No one will have a good ending if they get involved in this restaurant. But master said that we have to get this shop. If this woman continues coming, I will settle things on father's side. Bennett has fallen, and it is both a good thing and a bad thing to the Marquis family. Watch your words in the future. In the future, people will not spare us on account of Bennett anymore, Jonah warned sternly. Yes, the orc answered quickly. Jonah turned to walk downstairs. As he walked, he ordered, "Prepare the carriage. I want to go over to the tea house." The horse-drawn carriage quickly pulled over at the tea house named Ben. This was the most lavish tea house in Chaos City. Because Bennett was arrested, this place had been closed for days. However, the seals pasted by the people from the City Lord's castle and the Grey Temple were already taken down. There were even a few big demons and orcs guarding by the door. "Young master," all of them greeted respectfully when they saw Jonah alight from the horse-drawn carriage. Jonah glanced at the seals that were thrown aside with a frown, and asked, "Is father inside?" "Yes, master is inside," answered one demon as he opened the door for Jonah. In the opulent tea room, Bowen was leaning by the fireplace relaxedly with a boiling pot of tea in front of him. He had a mink blanket covering his legs as he watched the steam rise slowly from the pot. When he saw Jonah enter, he smilingly said, "Take a seat." "Father, isn't it a little inappropriate to remove the seal without the Grey Temple's permission?" Jonah asked straight away after taking a seat in front of Bowen. Bowen picked up the teapot, filled a cup with tea, and placed the cup in front of Jonah. Smiling, he said, "Try this tea from Vic Mountain." "Father," Jonah called out worriedly. He didn't pick up the teacup. "Jonah, do you think Bennett's incident is a good thing to us or a bad thing?" Bennett asked. Jonah thought carefully, and said, "Bennett had done many illegal things, so there is a chance that he might implicate the entire family one day. Now that he's caught, it means that the Marquis family has gotten rid of a ticking time bomb. It's not considered a bad thing. Whatever Bennett had, was all part of the family. But, it all belonged to him, and not us. Now that he was arrested, and he left us with all this mess, we definitely are not going to take it. However, some of the things, if thrown away, are a great loss to us and to the family." Bowen took a sip of tea and smiled eerily. "It's okay for us to forego those assets that aren't clean, but for those that we should take, we can't let a single one of them go. Don't worry about the City Lord's castle and the Grey Temple. The Marquis family has been in Chaos City for so long. If we can't even hold on to our family's assets, what does it make of our background as one of the 4 major families? But, just watch. These assets are ours." Bowen broke into a smile, and motioned for Jonah to drink the tea.